Hello, friends. Welcome to the Hydro Chronicle podcast with your host, Rich Hamilton.
Welcome, everybody, to the Hydro Chronicle podcast. On today's show, I was speaking with Jason Ralph Smith, owner of the Autopot system. He's an international businessman, and his system has gone from strength to strength over the years, now distributed in over 63 countries. We had a fantastic conversation, and it was really interesting to get to know the man behind the business. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Introducing Jason Ralph Smith. So, we're here today with Jason from Autopot. How's it going, Jason?
Very good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Cool. Well, thanks for popping down, coming down and seeing us at the podcast. So, Autopot, the success story of the hydroponics, you know, it's fantastic. You're global now.
Last count of the other week, we're supplying 63 countries around the world at the moment.
Wow, that's incredible.
So we're pretty much covering the globe as it stands.
That's fantastic. So, for the listeners that maybe don't know, they've been living in a box perhaps for the last 10 years or whatever it is, what actually is the Autopot system and what does it consist of and how does it work?
In essence, it's a gravity-fed system, and the heart of the Autopot is the aquavalve. So what the aquavalve does, once it's sat in a tray and connected to a reservoir of water through a network of piping, you turn the tap on, and the water, via gravity, just goes down the pipework into the tray via the aquavalve, and it's the aquavalve that controls the flow of the water to the plants. So in essence, the tray is allowed to flood to 20 millimetres, stops, and the plants drink all the water, and when there's no water left in the tray, in essence, or in layman's terms, the plants tell the aquavalve that we haven't got any more water, and the surface tensions and the vacuums within the aquavalve break and more water comes in. So it's the only system in the world that allows the plants to dictate what they want, when they want it, without the use of power, timers, computers and all that sort of thing.
Right, so if you've got, say, like, let's say a room of 10 plants, and some of them are feeding a little bit different, if they've every single plant's on an aquavalve, and then if one plant wants a little bit more than the other, then the aquavalve will...
Independently. Every aquavalve is independent to the plant's requirements. So if you've got, like you say, if you've got 10 pots, 10 valves will open and close at completely different times in accordance to the plant's needs.
And that's complete passive systems. There's no electricity.
I would say it's passive, but also we call it, what do we call it? PCI, plant controlled irrigation.
Right, okay.
So we just put a new spin on something, really.
Sounds good, sounds good.
But yeah, PCI we call it. And in essence, it's, like I said, it's the only system in the world that allows the plants to ultimately dictate exactly what they want without the use of, timers, gauges, computers, human intervention. Someone depicted it many years ago as having a leprechaun pop into your greenhouse or your growing area during the night or during the day and just topping the tray or the saucer up by magic, and then and in essence that's what it is. It's a very simple bit of plastic, but it's designed in such a way that you have surface tensions and vacuums that create that flood and drain technique in accordance to the plants, really.
And that comes from the reservoir into each plant through the aquavalve. And it doesn't go back into the reservoir. So as soon as it comes out of the reservoir and it goes into the feeding tray, then that's that. It's fed by the plant. The plant eats it up and then it gets replenished. Exactly. So it's not like a flood and drain system.
No, it doesn't recirculate. So, in all recirculating systems such as NFT or flood and drain or any other systems that obviously have recirculated water, plants will always take some elements out of that water. They'll adjust the pH. They'll strip nutrients out as long as the environmental conditions are great. And it can contaminate water back to the tank where it originally came from. Obviously, you have to constantly monitor, unless you've got computer equipment to obviously preset and adjust as things go on. But the great thing about it is that there's no chance of disease spreading to any other plants because water only goes from tank to tray to plant, tank to tray to plant. Never recirculates. So, it makes it a very
That's fantastic. I used flood and drain systems a few years ago, and that's the big problem that I found that I had. We had a problem in one of the grow environments, and one plant got diseased, and because it was on a flood and drain system, it took that disease back into the main reservoir and then infected the rest of the plants. But the Autopot doesn't work like that.
Never does, no. I mean, I must admit, it's probably, I'd probably say it is the most popular system in the UK and fast becoming the most popular system in Europe and America. And, in Canada, it most definitely is. It's our biggest market, and since obviously the changes of the laws over in Canada, we are shipping containers left, right and centre into Canada.
Well, it's a great system. It works. I see it everywhere. You know that I'm all around the world as well as the UK, and I see it everywhere. Every single shop that I go to, it doesn't matter whether it's in Las Vegas or Devon. they've got the autopot system in there.
Yeah, we don't just cover the hydroponic or retail hydroponic market. We do third world country projects. We'll probably talk on in a little while. We've got a project that's been ongoing for the last 4 years in Africa.
Is that the Kenya project?
That's the Kenya project. We do weird and wonderful stuff all around the world. I came into Autopot with a background of where I came from, but at the end of the day, everybody needs to eat.
Yeah.
And if you could teach, you look at school children and where they come from and where their knowledge or their understanding of where food comes from these days is almost non-existent. You go so the city, city centres of Birmingham or London or Manchester, children haven't seen cows, they haven't seen sheep, they haven't seen chickens. They don't know where an egg comes from. They don't know where a chip comes from.
They don't know the seasonality. I think we was talking before where I used to have sasumas as a child. I know it sounds crazy, but we had sasumas at Christmas because that's kind of when they were in season. I didn't come from low economic family, so it was a big treat to get those sasumas. Yeah. But now you can get any fruit, kiwis, avocados all year round. I know, there's just no season, and although that's great, for dietary requirements, the thing is the children and a lot of people don't know the seasons that these fruits sort of come in and go out to.
No, they don't. It's quite sad, really. I mean, I've founded a charity. It must be about sort of 7, 8, 9 years ago now, called Little Growers.
Little Growers, yeah.
And Little Growers was in essence set up to try and educate and create an understanding with children of where their produce comes from, how they can grow their produce at schools. The biggest dilemma that we sort of came up against was the health and safety issues.
Really?
And I mean, I put a lot of money into Little Growers over the years, and we've done a lot of interesting projects. Some failed, some have been successful. But I can remember many moons ago we went for national lottery funding. It was only £60,000 we went for, and the application was put in, and we had to adjust the application so it could go on to the next stage because the children were not permitted to eat the produce at lunchtime. They were only allowed to take it home because of health and safety reasons. They didn't want someone to die from a poisoned tomato or, and it's sad these days because obviously, lots of people are trying to make a little bit of help as best they possibly can. And then you've got the health and safety issues. And then, I look at all the allergies that children have these days, from nut allergies. Yeah. And if I look back from when I went to school, nut allergies didn't exist. No. And if you look at what children consume on a regular basis en masse, it's microwave food.
It is. It's beige, isn't it?
And, you don't have children very often going into the allotments with their grandparents like I used to do when I was a kid and getting their hands dirty. We go into some schools with Little Growers. And you go into schools that are prosperous. Children don't like to get their hands dirty. They start crying if they get soil under their nails. Whereas you go into schools, we did one particular school in inner city London, and it was a school that had children that were very seriously abused and, from all different walks of life and deprived societies. And that's where we saw the best, outcome. Little Growers, where you did have sort of like these guys with hoodies on who had always been sort of belittled all their lives, and to raise a tomato seed, which most people, if you're growing tomato plants, just raise a tomato seed and off it'll grow. But to raise a tomato seed, grow a plant, produce fruit off it, and be commended for it for the first time in their lives opens a little sort of door in their mind of, I'm not useless, I'm not hopeless, and there is something, in the future possibly for me.
Yeah, definitely. And they're going to be learning with that as they're doing that. So they're going to be learning about nutrients, how things actually grow, and investing in something, and then something giving it back.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Sure. Yeah, it is.
So where's did you say it's Little Helpers?
Little Growers.
Little Growers. And is that based in the UK?
It's a worldwide company, really. So, I mean, it's a CIC company, which is a community interest company. I think it was founded probably 10, 12 years ago. We've not done a great deal with it over the last couple of years, simply because we've been so busy with Autopot and all the things that are going on around the world. But we do have money available. We do, get approached by schools. We do give schools equipment. We quite often we give them for free. Yeah. Because we can have an ex-stock or ex-used equipment.
That's fantastic.
And but it's difficult because you go into schools and with all good intentions, that School teachers are like the hospitality industry. They move around a lot.
Yeah.
So you build up a rapport with school teachers who are in charge of the gardening project, and they move on.
Yeah,
And the
they
gardening
do.
project just falls apart, and all that time is wasted. Or the school just changes its mind and wants to use the space for something else. So outside learning is a great thing.
It's down to funding as well. I mean, myself, so most of my family are either teachers or they work in EBD schools, in schools with issues. My own daughter, Lily, she's 14 now. She goes to an EBD school herself, and they do have that. So I've taught in those where they have a budget. Not a lot of people know from the hydroponics industry, but my background is in art and graffiti and that sort of stuff. So we used to go in and we used to do classes on graffiti, like you say, getting the sort of the kids that have sort of been pushed out and have been belittled or abused in one way or another, or have learning difficulties or on the spectrum in some way, getting them to sort of use a paintbrush, use a spray can, do something cool. You can see the change in them. You can see it. And I'm sure it's exactly the same with little growers. When you see something like that and you see somebody who's completely shut off from the rest of the world suddenly start interacting with people through something like growing or art, it's a fantastic thing.
It is. Too many children spend too much time either out on the streets or in front of PlayStations and all that sort of social media.
They do, yeah.
The art of conversation's been lost.
They need that. They need to get back into the allotments and start growing again, because some of the food that's available from a lot of the supermarkets now, although yes, it is cheap and you can get seasoned stuff all round, the actual nutritional value of those fruits and vegetables has gone massively down because the big supermarkets and conglomerates are they're interested in profit, and everybody's interested in that sort of bag of potatoes for £1 or £1.45. But what they should be really looking at is the nutritional value of that.
For sure. Well, unfortunately, if you look at the likes of Tesco's and Waitrose and Sainsbury's, this time of the year now, tomatoes, for example, will be coming from southern Spain or Israel, and they get taken off the vine green, and then they get put in a refrigeration truck and driven to the UK or wherever they're heading in Europe, and gases get put, I can't remember which gas it is, gets put into the truck as it's travelling from south to north, that artificially makes the tomato go red.
Wow.
So that's when this time of the year, the tomatoes, in Holland, they call them water bombs because that's all they taste of. So if you notice in the UK, you will probably start having UK-produced tomatoes probably from about March, April time, depending on the weather. Flavour's okay because they can pick them a little bit later when they've got a bit more colour, a little more bricks, sugar in there as well. But when they come from southern Spain and Israel this time of the year, there is absolutely no flavour and they're just artificially made red, and that's why they taste the way they do.
So I didn't think you was going to say about the gases in the truck. I didn't know that. I know that they have huge carbon footprints that far outweigh the benefits of a punnet of tomatoes, for example. But to actually spray the put something in the truck in order to ripen them,
that's what they do.
Crazy.
That's unfortunately what they do. Yeah.
Wow. So back to Autopot. Where did it all begin? So what was it before it was the system? How did you sort of come up with the system or develop the system?
Autopot, as many people probably know because it's been flaunted around the industry, originally came from Australia.
Okay.
And when was it? Probably 1997, 96, a friend of mine called Andy went over. He was following the love of his life, who is now married. She lives in Australia. They now live in Australia. Right. And he'd gone over there to basically woo her. And he rang me up and he said, "Look, Jason, I've found this product, Autopot, in Australia. Can I send you one?" I said, yeah, send me one. So he sent one over. We tried it out in the greenhouse with some tomatoes at home. And it was 16 moving parts. They call theirs a smart valve. And I thought, no, this isn't going to work. Logistically, it's not going to continue. And it didn't. It just fouled up. So the years passed on, probably 18 months, 2 years, and Andy had come back home, and then he'd gone back again. And it was about 1998. And he rang me up again, and he said, "Oh, Jason, they've redeveloped the smart valve in Australia." Well, okay. Send one over. So we sent one over, looked at it, thought, that's brilliant. So unfortunately, in 1999, I was arrested and I was sent to prison for 2.5 years for cultivation of cannabis on a commercial scale.
Right, okay.
Most people know that, some people
I didn't
don't,
know
but
that.
it's part of my life now.
Right.
And so I served 13 months and studied while I was in prison, did business studies. I'm an educated person anyway, so I just thought, well, I read more books than I've ever read in my whole life while I was there.
Right.
Did computer courses and then worked in gardens towards the end of my sentence, and came out of prison and no one had tied up a deal with the Australian company. So I came out and I managed to tie up a deal with the Australian company. So for the first 4 years, I sold their products in the UK into the hydroponic market.
Okay.
And because obviously that's where my background was. That was the first port of call, or where I thought I could take the product to. So in about 2004, my grandmother died, and she left me quite a large amount of money, and I was literally walking out of the door to jump on a plane to go to Thailand because I wanted to buy some land in Thailand. And I got an email from Australia offering me worldwide exclusive distribution of the Autopot products from Australia.
Literally as you was walking out the door?
Near as damn it, yeah,
Wow.
within an hour or two. So I was really flattered, and obviously, dial-up was still, we didn't have, the speeds that we have these days. So, excuse me. And so I went over to Thailand and came back, and then started progressing talks with regards to this offer. So it started dragging on a little bit when we started asking whether patents were valid on their smart valve, which they had engraved all over their smart valve.
Right.
So it turned out they actually didn't have any patents on their smart valve. What they'd done, they'd illegally put patent numbers on a product to try and deter
Other people even going
copying
towards it, yeah.
So I went to go and see my father's patent lawyer, and because my father's always been a great inventor, he's probably one of the best innovators I've probably ever met in my life. He always solves a problem. And so I went to go and see the patent lawyer, Ian, and he said, look, there aren't any patents on this product. I said, what did you suggest? He said, well, if you don't make it, someone else will. I went, okay, fair enough. So we carried on the conversations with the Australian company for a little while. They also sold part of their company, I think it was 80 or 90% of their company, to another company in Malaysia called Iris, who specialise in retina scanners and airport stuff, and wanted to get into environmental cultivation and stuff like that. So, and the deal was initially that the Australian company wanted me to give them 500,000 Australian dollars to tie up a deal for 5 years. In essence, if I'd have given $500,000, which I didn't have, and the banks weren't interested in lending it to me, I'd have gone bankrupt.
Wow.
So I decided to go back to the banks. We'd initially asked them to borrow the money to give to the Australians, and they were like, you must be joking, we're not giving you almost, I think it was, the exchange rate at the time was roughly about £200,000.
When was this, like 98?
This was 2004.
Right,
This
okay.
was 2004. So the banks turned me down, and obviously speaking to Ian, the patent lawyer, and went back to the bank and said, look, I want to make the products myself. I want to redesign them, make them better, and make them myself. I own the tools. I went, there you go, there's £100,000.
Wow.
So they gave me $100,000. We carried on conversations with the Australian company, knowing full well that we weren't going to tie up a deal with them because they couldn't be trusted. And about 8 months into it, the Australians came back to us and said, look, we're not interested anymore. This is dragging on too long. I went, fair enough. There's my new website. And would I say all hell broke loose? No, not really, because there wasn't really anything they could do. There's people in the industry, you copied the Australian product. Well, yes, I did, but I had no choice. I was put in a position where I could have either lost everything or taken the bull by the horns, not been taken advantage of, and created a better product. So, in essence, now, what are we now, 15 years later, we now control the market with regards to the Autopot technology. We've made the product better. When they sell one product, we sell 10,000. So it's a product that was innovated by the gentleman over in Australia, but we took it to the next level. I would have been more than happy to work with him, but unfortunately, and it's common knowledge within the industry, he is not a trustworthy person to do business with.
Well, I'm glad you did go. I'm glad you did go down that route, because you've brought it to the masses. I think the hydroponics industry, especially here in the UK, for me, it's like a family. And I always bash on about it. It's like a family. Sometimes people don't get on with each other, but the bottom line is it's a family.
Yeah.
You bring that sort of community and family with you with Autopot. Everybody that you've had working for you with your Autopot at all the shows, they're always so friendly. They're so knowledgeable. They're happy to talk to everybody. You know, you're spending money and you're giving people jobs and careers in the industry, not here in the UK, you know, in America and all around the world, you know, in 63 countries, did you say?
Yeah, 63
so,
countries.
You know, I'm sure you're doing very well, but you're also, you know, helping everybody in the economy move forwards.
Well, we try to. You know, it's not just about, you know, growing one particular plant. It's about growing all different types of plants and different growing technologies, and also conjunction and the amalgamation of other products with Autopot, because Autopot, you know, is a product that can be used with many other products in the industry, and it has been over the years and proven to do so. So, and we've Autopot's different to, I suppose, you know, the likes of Highlight and Hydroguard and Nutriculture and Ian from Global Air Supplies and all the up-and-coming wholesalers, where we've had many opportunities over the years to take other products on.
Yeah.
And there's only one product that we have taken on that we don't actually own, which is BioTabs. And I have a very good relationship with the guys from BioTabs and have for many years, and we're good friends. And obviously it's an organic product that works well with Autopot. But we've had opportunity to sell products, and the products that I personally own are obviously Autopot and FlexiTank. And we've always wanted to concentrate on what we're good at.
Yeah.
I didn't want to become, you know, another distributor selling more products, whether they're good or whether they're bad, and start competing against, you know, all the people that I'm very good friends with, because in essence I'll be cutting off my nose to spite my face, because, you know, the likes of Canna and BioBeers and all the, you know, the big players in the industry, you know, for substrates and lighting or whatever, they work very closely with us because we're not amalgamated with anybody. You know, we just keep ourselves to ourselves and just promote Autopot and FlexiTank. And we also, obviously, we have the new R&D room, which is just had a new roof on it. So next year we'll be starting to do videos on Autopot, how to use it, how to understand it.
Oh, wow.
And then once we've launched those videos and got through, you know, a couple of months of videos or whatever, because we'll do 10 videos at a time, about 5 to 8 minutes long. People will be able to see those on YouTube and on all the various channels. And then what we'll start bringing people in and other companies in, talking about their products in conjunction with Autopot, and that'll work quite well, I think.
Well, I think that's brilliant. Like what I try to do with the Growers Guide with my books is I try to keep... I own the rights to the book and the publishers, so I tried to keep it ring-fenced against everybody. So everybody's welcome. So there are adverts in my latest book, for example, but I give the same flat rate to everybody.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you're sort of Canna or Caesar at Seaweasel, or, you know, it doesn't matter where you are in the market. I'm sort of, it's the same playing field for everybody.
Yeah.
And also that everything that's in the book... people don't pay to put anything in the book. If you want an advert in the book, you can put an advert in the book. That's absolutely fine. But all the products that are in the book is because I've used them. I have good relationships with people, the owners or the distributors or the actual manufacturers, and I know that they're a trusted, great product. So the same with you, sort of with your system. You stuck to your thing. And you sort of not sort of making super allegiance to one person, which may then sort of negatively affect the rest of the market.
That's the issue. You know, we do so many trials with so many different companies, because we don't associate ourselves with one particular company. And the reason mainly behind that is because Autopot seems to work with many, many products from many, many companies.
Does, yeah.
So from my point of view, would it have been right for me to become a distributor, or Autopot to become a distributor of many parts like, you know, many others? It's not my bag, really. I'll leave that up to them, and they can do what they want to do, and that's fine. From our point of view, it's about getting Autopot, or making Autopot to become a brand name, not just in the hydroponic industry, but also in the garden centre market, the commercial market, And it is heading that way.
Well, that's the one thing that you do have. You have that badge on your sleeve already, that you've gone into that commercial side or LP side around the world, where a lot of the industry brands that we find here in the UK, they're here in the UK, but if you go to America, some of them aren't there, or they're certainly not in commercial environments or other sort of horticultural sectors. They're sort of just within the hydroponic sector. So you've already broke the back on that.
We have. I mean, America has been hard work. I mean, it was difficult to set up. It's difficult to run a company in your own country, never mind run it remotely from the other side of the pond. So America was difficult and has been difficult. And when there was the big multinational takeover of all the major companies or major brands, the whole American market did suffer quite dramatically. And we did suffer as well. We had to close a warehouse down in Long Beach, consolidate everything up in Pittsburgh. And times were still tough, and this was probably about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. And then we decided, before Dan left the company in December last year, that we'd actually give the distribution to the American guys who were basically acting as the fulfillment company at the time. And it's started to pay dividends, and obviously because Canada is probably our biggest market at the moment by quite a way, it's starting to filter across to the Americans. And obviously America's now starting to take it on, and obviously we're picking up a lot of huge facilities over there as well.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably down to how good the system is. You've refined the system, and I know that there have been people who've tried to copy your system, and they've failed. They've failed, I think, on several angles. One is that the product just isn't as good. It just really isn't. And secondly, that it's sort of gone against the ethos of the community of the industry. Everybody has allegiance towards Autopot. I don't think I've heard a bad word said about Autopot ever.
Oh, you might have heard a few bad words said about me.
No. I haven't.
Well, it's strange because obviously, we're referring to Hydrogarden. And Hydrogarden, that's their business model. They bring in products, they sell products, and depending on how well the product does, they generally copy it, and that's what they do. Let me put it this way. If what they brought out, the GoGrow valve, was better than the AquaValve, and it worked, I think allegiances would have been quite fickle. Because unfortunately, the industry, it's consumer-driven.
Yeah.
So people want what their friends have got and what works for them. So business is business at the end of the day. And, Hydrogarden do what they do, and other companies do what they do, and we do what we do. Hydrogarden will turn around and say, well, you copied it from Australia. I'll go, well, yeah, I did. But, I had no choice. Otherwise, I had no business. Whereas you were a distributor of mine.
So they were actually distributing your product?
Yeah, they were, yeah.
Wow.
So they were distributing. I actually knew that they were bringing out this valve 6 years before they actually launched it, because a friend of mine, he was working in the offices in Hong Kong that were doing the design work.
Right.
I didn't know at the time he was doing the GoGrow valve until he left. And his name was Ernie Chen. And I was actually in Shenzhen at the time, in China, and he sent over some drawings. I've had enough. I'm leaving the design company. I'm going to go over and work and do something else. You might like a copy of these. So they opened the JPEG up or whatever it was, and hey presto, it was the GoGrow Plant It valve. So I kept that sort of to my chest for a few years until they launched it. And obviously when they launched it, I was a little bit apprehensive, thinking, we've done the due diligence on this valve and it's rubbish. And the actual concept of that valve originally came from China. So
this is their valve?
This is their valve. So a Chinese company actually tried to invert the technology, the AquaValve technology, literally turn it upside down and make it work. Hydrogarden found this company in China, alerted us. This is years before they launched their GoGrow valve. And they alerted us. We got some samples in, had a look at it. 3 or 4 hours after testing, and we threw it all in the bin. Thought, no, it's rubbish. It's got no worries about that. Hydrogarden thought it was brilliant, and obviously tried to make it look sexy and redesign the sort of shape and the concept of it. But the principle of the way it worked was exactly the same. So when they brought it out, obviously I'd already heard from the other side of the ocean in America that they'd launched it. Received some photos that morning, and went, phew, okay, it's not.
How did that feel with the time that you knew? And because obviously if they're distributing your product, They must have lined you up. They may not have done. I don't know, but
Hydrogarden are Hydrogarden. They are what they are, and they have their beliefs in the way that they run their business and the way that they treat people in the industry. And business is business at the end of the day. If they fall apart, no one in the industry is going to help put their children through school or look after their children. So it is a dog-eat-dog world out there. It's not just the hydroponic industry or the horticultural industry. It's every industry. You look at, we were just talking about the supermarket industry. That's ruthless.
Yeah.
So going back to Hydrogarden, they what made me laugh and what insulted my intelligence, and I've already stated this on previous podcasts with another company, is that they launched the valve, and then about 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, I received an email from one of the directors there. No one really knows him because the directors at Hydrogarden don't put their head above the precipice. They just hide behind, whatever they hide behind most of the time. And which is quite sad, really, because I think the company should always have a face of who's behind it, and I think that's what makes Highlight so popular, is because they are on the same level as the people that they're supplying the products to. So that's what makes them so successful. They're down to earth people.
They are, and Gareth is a great bloke. He's
a
great bloke.
He has his problems, but he's fine. No. No, he's a good lad. I like Gareth. They're good guys. They come from working class backgrounds. They've worked and grafted all their lives, and they deserve everything that they get. And white is white and black is black. There is no grey area with these guys. They'll tell you as it is, like it or lump it. And that's what I like about people. I grew up in Nottingham, so I understand the mentality and the way that people think in Nottingham, and that's me. But Hydrogarden, the one thing that bothered me or annoyed me most of all about Hydrogarden was an email that I received from one of the directors in the afternoon, basically saying I had no idea this product was going to be launched, which I knew and have subsequently found was utter rubbish. Awfully sorry, otherwise I would have alerted you much sooner. We're not going to target this product into the hydroponic market. We really want to get this into the garden centre market. We'd like to carry on selling your products. And I thought, what a crock of shit that is. So the following day, we had some people cold call Hydrogarden to see if they could buy the Autopot products, and then straight away upsold the GoGrow products. And we thought, right, okay, so within 10 days, they had a letter, and I said, the distribution's cancelled. I can't do business with you. You're not having FlexiTank anymore. You're not having Autopot anymore. And that was that. And it didn't affect Autopot. People took the slack, all the other distributors, and we moved on. And I know now that Hydrogarden regret making that decision by
they must have been turning over some quite large numbers with your product.
It was just greed.
So
at the end of the day, like I said, we go back to their model. Their model is to bring products, and they've done it with hundreds of quite a few products. They've done it with Helia pumps. They sold them for a while, and then they copied that brand, and Helia pumps did a phone up to find out why their sales were dropping. They did it with GHE, with their, their systems. They've done it with so many other systems. Done it with some of Ian, the Hyperfan. They've done it. They're renowned in the industry for just copying products. Their innovation is almost next to none, and they are a box-moving company, and that's what they do, and they do it very well. Their margins are lean. They have any difficult times, then they will feel it. But they just have, and to be honest with you, they've tried to, if you look at what's happened with Hydrogarden over the last couple of years, Hydrogarden obviously are a big distributor of Canna.
Yeah.
Canna, and I don't know what the figures are these days, but Canna are a huge part of their turnover. So let's just throw something in there. Let's say hypothetically, because I'm sure there's a load of gossip flying around. In fact, I know there's a load of gossip flying around the industry.
You can tell it. You can tell me.
Let's say hypothetically Hawthorne came in to buy Hydrogarden, and Hydrogarden might be positioning themselves to be bought out. They've just bought their building. Their net profits are very lean. They're not they're very very low net profits at the end.
They have just moved shares around as well in the directorship.
It wouldn't surprise me. They may be positioning themselves, to a buyout from someone else. The word is that Hawthorne are coming over to control the market. I mean, Hawthorne will control the market, full stop. Well, they already are in America.
I mean, I don't want to say anything that's going to be liable, but I know Well, I've heard, and this is hearsay, that they've already refused an offer from Hawthorn. And that's standard business. On a big model like that, you're going to refuse 3 times.
I don't know whether that's actually true. I know one particular, the largest distributor in Europe, was made an offer and has refused it. I don't know. I don't really care, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
If Hyder Garden have or they haven't, it's going to be what it is. Hawthorn, obviously a subsidiary in essence of Scotts Levington's. So what they've done, they've positioned themselves very nicely in the US. They bought all the major brands in the US. They bought the largest distributor, Sunlight Supply, in the US.
Yeah.
And now, and this is only hearsay, and I'm only repeating this of what I'm hearing, is that there are a chain of stores in the US that are multiplying week on week, month on month, and positioning themselves around the US, strategic states. Word has it that the people who own these chain of stores are very good friends with the Hawthorn Group. And you probably tend to sort of lean towards, okay, well, let's build up these chain of stores, and then we may sell those to Hawthorn, and then Hawthorn will control the whole market.
Yeah.
They do that. I mean, they control it from manufacturing to distribution at the moment. So if you think about it logically, what would be even though they profess that no, they're not interested in going into the market, they would say that because they're businessmen. But at the end of the day, business is business. People will do well, people won't do well. And unfortunately, that's the way things are in the world. Business is business no matter what field you're in.
You reckon 100% Hawthorn would definitely come into the UK?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. I mean, why would you not come to the UK? They sell Scotts Levington products in every single garden centre. You already have an infrastructure in the UK and Europe of distributors. So why would you not, cast your net further?
Do you think if they come, do you think they're going to stick with the same model and start supplying the hydroponics industry that's currently available, or do you think that they will drop a product, say in B&Q, the 600 watt light and a grow kit? There'll be a big sort of public outrage, and then it will die down, and then before you know it, every B&Q, every home base, every screw fix will have a vast array of Argos style sort of products.
I think Hawthorn and the lights will do whatever they think is right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if they can put hydroponic products, which are slowly going into the the Costco and the places in the US. Whether they're being bought en masse at the moment compared to the hydroponic stores, I don't really know. But if you can put, Miracle Grow, which is a Scotts Levington product, into every single garden centre, well, if you could take a Gavita light, or if you could take something and put that in every single garden centre or every single big shed, why wouldn't you? At the end of the day, like I said, business is business. And that's their business model. They've derived from one of the largest fertilizer companies the largest fertilizer company in the world. That turns over many billions a year, and that gives them the clout to be able to do whatever they want to do within reason. Obviously, you look at the outcry when Hawthorn bought into America, and the association with Bayer and Monsanto and everything. It's newspaper cuttings now. People are still buying from them, and it'll always be that same. People will complain, people will get axed, people will move on, and the market will carry on. And, as the market's starting to change here in the UK, which it will do, think that the laws will change, and in Europe as well, it's a perfect place for, a multinational company, international company, to stake its claim, really. Yeah,
definitely. And it's they can see the money that's being made in America, so they know how that model works. They've made the mistakes that they've made with legalisation of various things. And so they already know those pitfalls going into the UK. I think the UK as well, although that it's not as much money as America, obviously, I think it's a very important flag in the international map.
Yeah, it is, without a doubt. I mean, there's a lot of, unfortunately over here, the supermarkets don't support, the government don't support the growers over here with regards to edible crops. That's why Holland is such a big market, because it's heavily supported and subsidised by the Dutch government, and they're geared up for it. You know, they are top-notch growers, probably some of the best growers in the world. You know, coming out of Holland without a doubt. And you look all around the world, and you know, everybody looks at Holland for technologies and how to improve their crops, whatever crops they are.
Yeah, yeah. How long do you reckon it will be before that rolls out here in the UK? Sort of like legalisation of cannabis, or the changing of the law to medical? It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. I mean, it will happen. You know, I probably, if you'd asked me 3-4 years ago, I would have probably said, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Now I look at Canada. It depends, really, because I'm a big believer, and always have been. You know, I don't like what's happened in the industry. It puts me off being involved in the industry with regards to the greed.
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone's in business to make money. Don't get me wrong. And obviously the movement, the marijuana movement was originally initiated with people playing Bob Marley and wearing dreadlocks. It was never going to cut the mustard with regards to getting governments to lift their heads up and listen to you.
Yeah.
So a group of lawyers, accountants from Seattle, I believe, grouped together and basically went to go. First country was obviously Uruguay. Went to Uruguayan freedom fighters and said, look, if you want to make a change the music, cut your hair off and put a suit on, and they'll listen to you. So that's exactly what they did. And they took that blueprint and then they rolled it out into Washington and Colorado, and then obviously the ball has started rolling for everywhere. The issue from my point of view now is that obviously the original freedom fighters were free the weed.
Yeah.
You know, everyone should be allowed to smoke it. Bob Marley's mentality, which I totally agree. It's a natural plant and it should be allowed to be consumed. You know, people should be allowed to grow their own. You know, maybe there's a restriction on how many you grow. Who dictates how many you should allow to grow? Is it the governments, or, you know? I
agree. Putting on a naturally grown plant, and it's illegal to grow a plant, I think it's ridiculous in this day and age. It is.
But problem is now it's all about greed and money. You know, I look at all the businesses that I'm involved with. There is no. It's not about healing people, because in essence, governments and pharmaceutical companies who have been giving people pharmaceutical drugs for various ailments over the year, they don't want to heal you. They just want to keep you alive so they can keep feeding you the pharmaceutical drugs, because it's money.
There's that phrase, isn't it? A cured patient's a lost customer.
Lost revenue, yeah, it is. Whereas, obviously, medical cannabis, and you're saying, oh, we need to produce more white papers and blah, blah, blah. Rubbish, really. Obviously, they've had a big scare with the vape pens. When you start messing about with something and being greedy and putting other fillers in there, then you've only got yourselves to blame. You put it in a Rizzler paper or put it in a bong. We never had these issues before. So now it's all about money. The medical issues have seemed to have subsided, you know, or slipped away, and it's all about who can make this and who can make that, and who's turning over this and who's going bankrupt, or who's ripped off, or who's taken advantage of Health Canada's laws and been shut down. The Canadian market regards to commercial cannabis production is in a very rocky place at the moment.
Right, I didn't know that.
Very rocky place. Look at the share prices, for example. A classic example, Growth Canopy, were about 74 Canadian dollars per share last year. They're down to $16, $17 today.
Wow.
The reason being is because greed came in. They had the money. They built the greenhouses in snow belts, and then suddenly realised that you can't grow properly in this type of situation, these types of situations in greenhouses, mass heating issues, lack of light during the winter period. Probably, I don't know whether they've all got blackout.
It's just not economically viable.
No, you can't. You know, at the end of the day, I've been involved in the industry for almost 30 years. You know, I'm a commercial grower, and my expertise is in the production of cannabis, full stop, whether it's medical or not. And that's what I was arrested for. And I was regarded in 1999 when I was arrested, and all the samples of all the product that I grew was sent to the scientific department. I was producing between 18 and 23% with the technology we had over 20 years ago, which knocked spots off what a lot of people are doing these days. But it was the quality, and this is where the issues are. There are a lot of people with a lot of money, but with very little knowledge on how to grow and finish off and cure and present a plant. And it's all about greed, growing it as fast as you can, as quick as you can. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of companies that will have lost a lot of money already. And the cream will always rise to the top. And from my point of view,
100%.
From my point of view, and the people I associate myself with over in Holland, we're rubbing our hands because there's a great opportunity for our networking group to take advantage of the lack of understanding from all the people and all the companies. And that's exactly what we'll do. We'll go in there as consultants. We'll earn a good buck. We'll do a job that we enjoy doing really well. And then we'll produce, good quality medical or recreational cannabis for people who require it.
Which the end user then benefits.
Of course.
Or all way around.
It'll be consumer driven. I have to
Yeah.
be. People who are obviously, have this big issue about organics and mineral. Well, the majority of the minerals that are used to create the mineral fertilizer dug up from the ground anyway.
Yeah.
So does that make it organic or does it make it mineral? These are, the definition of organic. So, I've been in many commercial nurseries, pepper farms, tomato farms, cucumber farms, where 99.9% of everything is grown with mineral fertilizer. The reason they're always grown by mineral fertilizer is because organics, they aren't stable enough. You can't leave them in tanks long enough. They block up lines.
Yeah.
But regards to the medical cannabis or the recreational cannabis industry, because you are inhaling a smoke, which obviously smoking, you shouldn't really be smoking anyway. They want it as natural as possible. So less obviously no pesticides. And so you're looking at organic or you're looking at vegan to make it even purer. Just that's the way things will head. But unfortunately, the disadvantage that all these money people have is that they don't have the knowledge.
No, they don't. I think there's, especially with, say, a cannabis plant, it doesn't always fall within what's on a spreadsheet or an Excel document. You need care and love. I always say what you put in is what you get out. And I believe that wholeheartedly. The other thing is with minerals and organics, you can't guarantee sort of certain results with organics. No. And what a lot of people, I don't think, realise that they think, organics is good and it's better. But sometimes you can have I think personally, it's better to have a clean mineral than a dirty organic. Because sometimes as soon as people sort of say, it's organic, they naturally think, then it's better for you. But some organic compounds actually have much higher heavy metals and much, are able to process those metals into the plant. So, yeah, it's interesting.
But with mineral fertilizer, you can steer the plant more. So you have much more ability to be able to drive and steer that plant in the direction you want to steer it in. And that's why, if you look at Holland, for example, and the mass production of edible produce over there, whether it's tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, aubergines, 99.9% of everything is a mineral fertilizer because they can drive the plants. They have better control of the plants. Organics are great. I've never been a massive believer of organics, but when it comes to medical cannabis and recreational cannabis, I would always steer towards organics or even vegan.
Yeah, that's quite a big thing that I've seen in America over the last couple of years. Vegan Matrix, Kyle Cushman's sort of brand, or is involved with that.
Yeah.
And when I've mentioned it here back in the UK about sort of vegan cannabis, vegan weed, I get people pull the funniest faces at me. It's just like, you're ridiculous. Vegan weed, you've gone too far.
Yeah.
But I think there's a huge market for it, especially
there
for example, like religious markets.
Yeah.
If you have a CBD product, if you have something that's going to be medically available, and for whatever reason the religious beliefs dictate that you need to have vegan intake only, then that also should be applied to what you're taking in on a medical, such as cannabis or CBD, should be derived from vegan.
Well, if you look at supermarkets these days, they've all now started to increase their vegan popularity or their awareness.
It's like the buzzword, isn't it?
It is the buzzword. It drives me mad at times. But it is the buzzword. And if you can capitalise on, producing medical cannabis via a vegan growing method, then you've captured another market.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, people, in essence, whether it's vegan, organic, would like to consume however they consume medical cannabis or recreational cannabis, as pure as it possibly is. In an ideal world, you just want plants that are grown on the hills of Tibet.
Yeah.
And, it's pretty damn natural. And you cut those plants down and you can smoke them, and you're not going to have any pesticides or anything on there because it's grown at, 2,500 meters up in the air.
Yeah.
So anything that's as natural as possible should be kept that way, I think,
How do you see it rolling out here in the UK when it does roll out? Do you think it's going to go medical, then recreational? See, I'm a firm believer in that they will go medical, as it is now. I mean, it's been prescribed 3 times, I think. When it goes medical, it will take about a year, maybe 2 years to realise that they can't make any money on medical. So the only way they can do it is by taxing recreational, same as alcohol.
As it stands of last week, there are 27 entities in the UK that have licences.
Wow.
7 of those are universities,
Right.
and 20 of them are companies. I used to be a consultant for one particular company up north. I'm no longer a consultant there for certain particular reasons. But I think the UK market will be exactly the same as all the other markets. It will be about who can grow the best quality. Once again, it's people in the industry who generally don't know what they're doing. I know quite a few who don't know what they're doing. And we'll try and bring people in to profess that they do know what they're doing. And it'll be like America, but on a smaller scale. Right. We've got a little bit more, I wouldn't say that, because the Canadians have got good growers, the US guys have got good growers, and the English guys have got good growers, and the Dutch have got good growers. But it becomes a different beast once you're growing in a room or a basement with 10 lights and you're mumbling around and probably getting stoned most of your time, to go into a commercial setup and make sure crop management is on point 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and to ensure that a procession of plants comes in, grows, matures, harvests, gets cured properly and sent out. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people over here who really don't know their arse from their elbow.
I think a lot of them will think that they can do it, but with what you just said, like with the commercial LPs, as well as that, what they've got to do, just managing that logistically, they've also got to make sure they're hitting all the regulations, they're signing all the forms, they're getting everything done at every single stage, because you only need one T not to be crossed, and the whole multi-million-pound crop could literally be
for sure
in the bin.
I mean, the strange thing, well, it's not strange, the laws in the EU, and I don't know whether we're going to leave Brexit at the end of the week. I mean, I hope to God we do, because I'm fed up of listening to it. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, Boris is trying to get a job done, and everyone's trying to stop him. I've never voted in my life, never will, but I just think Boris is the new Winston Churchill, buffling. I think he's just a different spin on politics, and if he gets the job done, he gets the job done. If he doesn't, I just don't want to turn the news on for another 6 months because I'm fed up of hearing it.
I feel exactly the same. I don't vote either.
No. Oh, what's the point? But at the end of the day, going back to so THC levels required or allowed permitted THC levels in the UK and the EU are 0.2%. CBD, you can have whatever levels. In Switzerland, I was in Switzerland about 3 weeks ago to go and see some clients over there, and their levels of THC are 1%, and CBD levels can be whatever they want. So obviously, because Switzerland is its own country and not part of the EU, they are producing large amounts of CBD and 1% THC cannabis. They have various strains that that the Swiss government say that's okay to grow, and the police know everybody is. The police will turn up at facilities with monitoring equipment to test, to make sure no one's exceeding the 1%. And but to my horror, what I didn't realise, and not a lot of people know this, everything that's being produced in Switzerland that's coming into the UK or outside of Switzerland, shall I say, is washed. So they need to reduce the THC content of the cannabis being shipped out of Switzerland to 0.2%. So they are washing it with ethanol, CO2, and then they are selling it to the people who are making CBD products here, white label CBD products over here, and it's been washed already in ethanol. So a lot of the terpenes have come out, a lot of the minor elements that are in there people aren't aware of, the THC content, the CBD, CBG, the whole lot is being stripped out and then sold to you at a higher price. So be very aware, people who are listening, that where you buy your CBD products from, if they're originally derived from Switzerland, then it's not full spectrum of the plant. It just can't be. It's impossible because everything's been taken out. But the Swiss government, from what I'm hearing, are now looking at changing their mindset on allowing growers to increase the levels of THC in their plants. So if Switzerland are ahead of the game, then there'll be no market. I mean, I look at the market now and it's finished. It's done and dusted. The market is saturated. The prices have come down. People have got, I look at where I worked as a consultant for 2.5 years. It turned into greed. It really did turn into greed. And that's all I hear coming out there is greed, 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 greed. It's, it's dressed up with a degree of, yes, we want to help the world and medical. It's rubbish. The fact of the matter is that there will be no money left in it for anyone because the prices, I mean, the Dutch are buying a kilo of cannabis for 400 euros a kilo. The Italians are shipping their CBD products into Switzerland for 900 euros a kilo. So we haven't even started yet. So the market has completely become saturated and no one's going to make any money. So all these people, in the UK who are jumping on, we're going to make a fortune. Because that's all they're interested in anyway. They're not interested in helping the world.
I've seen the meme. Have you seen the meme of that guy covered in gold with a Ferrari and it says a strip line under? It's about the patients.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. It's about the money. And it was, for me, if I look back from where I came from, it was always about, I made money, but I was a hippie. We used to have everybody coming around smoking all the time and, in this sort of mid-90s. And then obviously I got caught, went to prison. But it's about, I'm a passionate grower and always have been. And I miss growing cannabis. I have the privilege to go around the world and go into commercial facilities and advise and consult. I'd like to have my own facility, just my own personal facility, whether it was, like they have the special breweries, unique breweries. What do they call them? I can't remember.
Like handcrafts.
Yeah, the craft company. Yeah, so I'd like to personally, in time, maybe have a craft, cannabis facility that maybe grows 2,000 plants, and then we'd show everybody in the world how cannabis should be grown. Yeah. Because unfortunately, from my point of view, it's about producing a good quality plant. Yes, we'll get paid for it. We'll get paid for it because we put a lot of love and energy into it, and I haven't treated the plant as a pound sign or a dollar sign. Yeah. And we produced, good quality cannabis. And unfortunately, I've got, and the people I associate myself with, have got 30, 40 years growing experience in that particular plant. Whereas people coming into the industry in the last 5 years are suddenly all experts, but the proof's in the pudding. If you look at the share index of many companies and the way that the product's now been sort of grown absolutely everywhere, there is no money in it anymore. No. I mean, the money will be probably for a little while in recreational, but I think that will tail off as well. It'll just become cheap as chips. It won't be a cash crop that people are looking at now. And people will grow their own, and they should be allowed to grow their own. Do
you know what the rough current price is in America from like an LP, from an actual sort of from source into distribution or into a dispensary?
It varies. I mean, I don't know the exact prices. I mean, I was looking at something the other day, and the 1 gram in Canada was roughly about $7 Canadian.
Right.
And I think the LPs are trying to bring the price down to get rid of the black market down to about $4 Canadian. The problem is that will never happen because until the LPs produce the quality, the black market will always be king. I mean, I got some figures the other day, whereas in Vancouver, there are very few. I think there is only a handful of legal dispensaries, lots of illegal dispensaries. The Health Canada directed cannabis into the state of Vancouver is 2%.
Wow.
The rest of the 98% is black market. So you have got no chance, and there's lots of things that are going on. I mean, obviously you had Canna Trust that about 4 or 5 weeks ago have had their license taken away or revoked, whether on a temporary basis or not. They were found to be growing in areas where they didn't have a license. Whether they're growing their own or they're buying off the black market, it's yet to be seen, but who knows?
I believe craft's the way forward.
Oh, without a doubt.
I do 100%. Are you aware of the Phylos situation with the Galaxy?
No.
Where they're sort of copying other people's genetics?
No.
No. Okay. There's a big company that's been collecting genetics
Right.
in America,
Yeah.
and what they was doing is trying to safeguard other growers.
Right.
And so let's say if you say I had white widow,
Yeah.
and you say, okay, this is my white widow. I'm from this grow facility. I've bred this, so I'm going to send it off to this company. What they do is they give you a certificate to say that you sent this off, and
Right.
these are the exact readouts of it, and you've kind of sort of registered it. I think it all started off the back of the Gorilla Glue with the law. And then everyone else can pay a fee, and if you have a variation of this strain, you can upload it to the Galaxy,
Yeah.
and you can pay a subscription fee, and you can go on there and you can have a look at all of the other white widows, all of their terpene profiles and
Right.
where they are, and it's basically a huge database
Yeah.
of cannabis, so you can see what the differences are within the strains and who first, not necessarily made them, but who first sort of accredited that, this is my strain. And it was going great, and it was to protect the growers and the breeders that are making crops, but then they turn around and said that they're actually going to be genetically modifying and bringing out their own cannabis,
Right.
and they're going to have all markers in. And all of the breeders that had paid money, they'd paid $2,000 to have the certificate, sort of said that's ridiculous. You promised you was never going to do this. I think the owner of the company said, no, we're not going to use any of our database of millions of these samples that we still actually have on cold storage.
Right.
We're not going to use that. And then he got caught within, I think it was about 30 minutes.
Right.
A video was leaked of
Yeah.
him talking to investment funders,
Right.
saying that that's exactly what they were going to do, and that
Right.
was their plan from the start.
Right. Okay.
So I think that company then, what they're trying to do is they're planning on sort of breeding and genetically modifying the next generation of super cannabis,
Right.
where because they are going to tissue culture all of the clones, they have all the markers in place, so they can pretty much make you whatever you want. If you want a THC of 18 and CBD of this or a THA, they can pretty much make it.
Well, the majority of the crops that we eat these days, or cereals, are all genetically modified, and the seeds are controlled by Bayer and Monsanto. So, whether people want to start consuming, government-grown cannabis that's derived from genetically modified technology,
Sounds like a sci-fi movie, doesn't it?
I would be very surprised. At the end of the day, for the younger generation, it'll all be about how high they can get the THC. Because that in the States, particularly in Nevada, because obviously Nevada's got a huge transient, Vegas, huge transient of roughly 50, 60 million visitors a year. So for all the companies who've got dispensaries over there, their biggest selling product by a country mile is anything that's got the highest THC levels.
It's the biggest selling point
it's
still.
the biggest selling point in the state of Nevada. Obviously, you've got people flying from all around the world into Vegas to party or do whatever they do. And then now you've got the sex, the drugs and the rock and roll and the gambling. So they've now got everything under one banner, really, in Vegas. And I know it. People. Stag dudes will go in there. They'll go into a dispensary, buy some, get absolutely obliterated, and leave most of it in the hotel room and fly home. Yeah. So but that doesn't worry the dispensary. The maid will obviously pick it up, and then she can go home and get stoned. But yeah, it's.
I do like the dispensary model in Vegas. I was there.
Yeah.
And I went. I think I visited about 14 for a magazine. They asked me to go.
Yeah.
Write a review on them, and there was a couple that I was really surprised with. I
Yeah.
was really happy with.
Yeah.
Like MedMen, for example. That was really good. Had a really good experience there. Same with Planet 13. I thought it was brilliant. It was almost like an Apple shop. But for weed.
I mean, we were over there last year and we tried some, and I'm totally honest, it was awful. It was absolutely awful. I was up in Vancouver in January this year, and we went to a legal approved Health Canada dispensary.
Yeah.
Rubbish. Utter rubbish. Really, the quality. To produce good quality cannabis doesn't come from a book or come from someone who's grown 10 lights. It comes with years and years of experience, and there aren't many people around like that. There really aren't.
There's a lot of people that like to think that.
There are a lot of people. You put them in the middle of the mix, in the middle of 250,000 pepper plants, cucumber plants, tomato plants. They will struggle. And I think what a lot of, and I think they're starting to slowly click on, is that for a big commercial setup, and to be honest with you, to be able to produce excellent quality cannabis, it really needs to be indoors. It has to be indoors. The sun is great, and you can produce good quality but as a finished bud article, it needs to be indoors, because the sunlight grows the plant completely differently. Don't say it's any less or any stronger. When I've smoked it many years ago, in the sort of very early 90s, I was smoking cannabis from Papua New Guinea called Papua New Guinea Gold, and I have never ever smoked cannabis anywhere in the world. Not from Holland, not from America, nowhere. These guys, and they're all growing, with spiritual sort of beliefs and things like that, and they would be growing plants outdoors. Just 48 hours before they would harvest the plants, it's a thing called spiral binding. I've tried it. I can't do it. I've tried it for years and years and years. Can't do it. And what you do, you take a part of the cellular wall and strip it off like a helter-skelter along every branch of every major branch on that plant. 48 hours, 72 hours before the plant's ready to be harvested. And what happens? The plant instinctively thinks it's going to be attacked. Yeah. And obviously, the latitude and longitude where Papua New Guinea is, the sun levels it has, and the type of climate that they have. What happens? They spiral bind as much as the plant they can, which is a technique beyond belief, and the plant just looks like it just droops dramatically over a period of 4 or 5 hours, and then within 24 hours it just reacts and shoots back up. But it sends all the energy to try and protect itself into flower, which makes the bud go gold. Right. Hence the name Papua New Guinea Gold. Few and far between. Fortunately, I knew a guy from Papua New Guinea in the very early 90s whose brother came over on a boat one night, gave us this weed, and I'd never, ever smoked anything like it in my life. It's just knocked me into the stratosphere. Yeah. But,
that's really interesting. That's really interesting, because I've just done an article. It's in Garden Culture magazine. Big up Eric. About hormesis and xenohormesis, about stressing the plant at the end of its life cycle, say for peppers and chilies. And by stressing it, it's exactly the same as that spiral. I think what I was saying is, a lot of people in America, they freeze the roots. So before harvest, they sort of put cold packs around the roots, and it makes the plant think it's dying. And it's basically, it's got one last push before it gives up, but it gives everything then to the fruits, and it develops the colours and everything. Yeah. But I've never heard of that spiraling.
Yeah, we used to, years ago, get a piece of copper, probably 3-4 days before we harvest the plants, drive it through the base of the stem, leave the copper there for an hour, pull it out, the plant would droop, and then it would fire back up.
Wow. And so this spiraling, they literally sort of take a slither and sort of wrap it.
Yeah, I've tried it.
That must be so intricate.
Try it on any plant. It is nigh on impossible. I have tried it till I'm blue in the face. I can't do it.
Can't do it.
No.
Wow. So it's not very good then. The stuff that you had in America wasn't very good at all.
No, I mean, the stuff coming out of California and the stuff coming out, Canada's probably the worst, considering they're supposed to be setting the benchmark.
Well, hopefully the bubble, like you say, the share prices have gone down. I think the bubble's probably burst, and now the bubble's burst, the people that's going to be left there are actually going to be the people that are interested in producing a crop, and not just people that see a money opportunity.
Well, the thing is, you've got so many multinational companies invested in the cannabis industry in Canada, for example, and obviously the rest of the world now. You've got the drinks companies, owning sort of like 30, 25, 30%, 40% of growth canopy. They want a return of their investment. So I also heard that what they're trying to do is they've come to the realization that they can't grow cannabis compared to the black market. So what I've heard is that they are trying to approach the black market and say, look, as a craft cannabis company, we will finance you to get your license, to get your facility, to set you all up, and you will grow your cannabis the way that you grow it, and we will buy it from you.
Yeah, under our facilities legally.
So that's what I think they're looking at the moment. Whether the black market will be dictated to by the straight market, I don't know. Because obviously, once you put your head above the precipice, then you
get alienated very quickly.
Then you're there, and suddenly you're in the hands of Big Brother, and your prices that you thought you were going to dictate were no longer being dictated by yourself, but they were being dictated by the person who's buying it from you.
And by the time that's done, the brand, the name has been damaged irreparably because you would be classed, I guess, as a sellout.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, people should be allowed to grow their own. And that is happening, it's quite evident with the amount of stuff, the product that we're shipping in containers into Canada, that people are growing their own. And as long as that carries on throughout the rest of the world, and it's not just the governments that control that market and then try and, I find it very hypocritical because for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, governments have been saying, it will kill you, you'll go insane, blah, 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 blah. Knowing full well it's absolute crock of shit. And the pharmaceutical companies are the ones who've been making all the money, and they're the ones who've been ultimately helping governments stay in power by backing them financially. Now are suddenly saying, well, it's actually all right for you, unless you have it in a vape pen from some of the American companies, then you're knackered. But I do find it hypocritical. If the government, I think there'd be a massive outcry if the UK government said, right, okay, we're not going to allow people to grow their own at home. To police that would be nigh on impossible because there's so many people growing in the UK and the rest of the world now at home. And people, I think, would just go against the grain. And I think the market would still be buoyant over here, because the people who are involved in producing medical cannabis or, probably in future recreational cannabis here in the UK don't know how to grow it properly. No. And they haven't got the experience. They can bring in people who say they've got the experience, but unless you've got 20-odd, 30 years of growing a cannabis plant or being involved with that cannabis plant and actually, knowing what you're doing on a big scale, you don't know nothing.
And that's it. You've also got to fit, when you go onto that big scale, you've got to fit into that, the logistics of it all as well, and I think some people will struggle. So they might be able to grow. You might have the best grower in the UK, but is he going to fit into the model of sort of a legal LP environment?
Exactly.
Probably not.
And that's where people are finding they've lost that sort of, not the relaxed, the relaxed attitude behind it. But then, then you take away the worry of looking over your shoulder all the time. If I look back, almost 20, well, it is 20, over 20 years ago now. I used to just spend the majority of my time looking over my shoulder when I was visiting my house and stuff like that. That was full of cannabis at the time that I got arrested for. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I don't grow anything, and I have the privilege of being involved in facilities over here, facilities around the world. Yes, I would like my own facility, and then just do craft cannabis that would be just unique to the facility that I own.
I think that would be incredible. I think you'd be able to produce something incredibly. I think it would be next level. And I think that word's used quite a lot, next level, but I think it would be incredible. So the products that you ship into Canada, are they the same products that we can get here in the UK?
Yeah, it's all identical. I mean, everything that we manufacture, probably 95% of everything that we manufacture is now manufactured in the UK. So the only things that we have manufactured in overseas, which are in China, are the flexi tank, because we just could not get the prices down. But we have a good relationship, which is difficult at times, with our Chinese manufacturer, just because of the mentality of the way that the Chinese see things, see things differently to the way we see things. But we've been dealing with this company probably about 9-10 years now, and they've not let us down. They've let us down, occasionally here and there, and we've had to reiterate, the importance of quality and the things like that. But if you look at the Flexi Tank brand, it's the biggest flexible brand in the world now.
Yeah, well, it's certainly huge here in the UK. For the listeners that maybe haven't seen it, what actually is the Flexi Tank, and how does that work?
Flexi Tank, in essence, came to light because Autopot started selling systems outside of the UK. So people were asking for bigger reservoirs, and obviously the reservoirs that were available at the time are all rotor-molded or vacuum formed, mostly rotor-molded, big tanks that you can only really, say a 350-litre reservoir from Harco Star, you could only fit 6 on a pallet. So I feel quite, when people say, I need to order 6 or, I need to order a load of 350-litre tanks, I was like, I really don't want to sell these to you because you're going to pay more in shipping.
Pay on this pallet, yeah.
So basically looked around, and a friend at the time, Paul, we looked around, and I bought a tank from a garden centre, and it sat in the garage for about a year and a half, and it was in essence what we have with the Flexi Tank now. And all the Flexi Tank range is, we have the Flexi Tank, which is the blue one, and we have the Flexi Tank Pro, which is the white one. And one's the Mini, which we sell thousands of, and the white one is the Rolls Royce, which we sell less of. And all it is, in essence, is a tank, a plastic holding bag with legs that can hold water anywhere from, I think it's 25 litres up to 1,000 litres, so a ton of water. And obviously these things are designed for the design for transportation, storage, accessibility into properties and things like that. And they're just you open them up, you put the legs in the sleeves, and then you fill them up with water. And they're pretty robust. Obviously they've stood their test of time. Everybody else has tried to bring the collapsible reservoirs out. It's never happened.
No, it doesn't work. No.
You've just had another company bring out some camouflage ones. Whether they'll take off, I don't know. But yeah, everyone's
camouflaged ones.
Yeah, they're from a company called Alien.
Right.
They just brought them out. They look like waste paper bins actually, because they put the frame on the outside. So whether they'll take off, I don't know. But as a brand, Flexi Tank has become the worldwide brand. I mean, we sell containers all around the world into all different walks, not just the hydroponic industry, in different aspects, different business. So Formula One, we sell them into Formula One.
Really?
Well, they used them. They used to. Formula One, obviously, when they have their gazebos above, the cars and things like that, they'd anchor them down with concrete weights so they wouldn't blow away. Well, now they anchor them down in various places with collapsible flexi tanks, because they can just drain the water out at the end and pick it up and off they go to the next event. So yeah, we sell them all in all different places all around the world.
I suppose for all different things as well.
Yeah.
Not just as a reservoir for feeding the plant, like you say, like weighting things down, or just drinking water even.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, so in the UK, have you got any new plans for new products coming out in the UK?
Well, people might have seen on the Facebook feed that I've been playing around with a hanging basket for the last probably 8 months. So we've got a hanging basket concept, which I'm pretty happy with. I need to make a few tweaks here and there. At the moment, I've got, I think, 15 tools being made for various products. Some are duplicate tools, because obviously the demand on the products is starting to exceed the supply.
Wow.
So we need to start making more tools to obviously position ourselves so that we know we're not busy fools. So there's quite a few tools that are being duplicated. We've got the AquaValve 5, which people are already aware about and saying, when is it coming? I'm a big believer of don't rush things, because otherwise everyone will be going, why have you released that, Jason? It's crap. So at the end of the day, so the AquaValve 5, we've just received 500 samples, actually, that we're going to send out to various people around the UK and the world, just to get their feedback before we officially launch it. Sort of hopefully first quarter of next year, we'd like to try and...
And what is the AquaValve 5?
In essence, it's exactly the same as the existing AquaValve. So if we go back to the very beginning, the original AquaValve had a 2 mil aperture for the water to flow through. Then we increased it to 3 millimetres, probably about 3 years ago. And then obviously we thought, right, okay, let's see if we can increase it to 5 millimetres. By increasing it to 5 millimetres, the flow rate is immense. The potential of blockages is reduced dramatically. Doesn't mean that you can use liquid organics in it, because liquid organics shouldn't really be used on a perpetual basis in pipe-driven systems, because they just will foul them up eventually. But with the AquaValve 5, it's identical. It just has an aperture where you connect the pipe of 5 millimetres as opposed to 3. So we've got to change all the fittings. So all the fittings won't be standard fittings that you have 6 mil, 4 mil, or 13 mil, 16 mil, depending if you're doing OD or ID, outside diameter, inside diameter. They will all be unique to Autopot. So we've got to have all the fittings made so they'll go from, we measure OD, which is 6 millimetres. I think they're going up to either 8 or 9 mil OD, which will be about 7 mil, 6 mil ID. So we've got to create all those injection moulded fittings as well.
That's a long list.
It is a long list. I mean, we own a lot of tools now, a lot of injection moulding tools. So we've got the new Aquavalve 5, which will be coming out in the new year. I've just got to, because we've just upgraded the roof at the R&D facility at the offices. That's literally finished last Friday. I wanted to try and get it up and running, but I'm actually away from the middle of November till the middle of December. I'm in South America. In America, I'm away for a month, which I'm not really looking forward to be honest with you.
Really?
Well, no, because it's
Holiday?
business.
Oh, it's business,
No,
right,
that's
okay.
what my girlfriend says. She goes, whenever it's holiday or if there's any sun involved, it is holiday.
Yeah.
But it's not. It'll be. We've got 3 exhibitions. We've got one in Colombia, one in Chile, and one in, obviously, the MJ Biz in Vegas, and various companies to see in between. And so, yeah, it's going to be quite a trek. But so other products we've got the Aquavalve 5 coming out, the hanging basket.
That sounds really interesting. Is that for the hydroponics industry? Or
No, it's just it's for the hanging basket market. I mean, obviously, we supply products into all different walks of life, horticultural life. Not just the the marijuana industry. We do lots. Like I said at the beginning of the show, everybody needs to eat. Not everybody needs to smoke.
Yeah.
And so we've got that product. We've got that product coming out, the Aquavalve 5. The hanging basket is for the hanging basket market. So anyone who hasn't seen it, they can go on the Autopot Facebook page, and you'll see video trials over the last couple of months of me. And in essence, what it is, it's a standard design hanging basket, the oval shape or the semicircular shape, with an Aquavalve attached in a saucer below that planting area.
Wow.
And then in the middle of it, in the planting area, you have a column of water that's linked to the Aquavalve below. So in essence, what it will do, it's a complete self-contained watering basket that you just fill up the column of water. We'll put it's called a Lenny stick, the stick that floats to tell you how much water in there. So we'll put one of those in there. So it works. And we've grown a plant that I think the drop was 4.5, 5 feet, and the width of it was 5 feet. So it was a big old plant this year. And I didn't really plant it up sensibly. I look at where the councils, they've been doing it for years. They plant their plants up, and I thought, right, okay, I'm not really an expert in hanging baskets, but I'll put these plants in it. And I look at my plants now, who've come to the middle of October, near the end of November. Mine have pretty much done and dusted, whereas the strains of petunias and all the different things that they've used in the council hanging basket, they're still kicking on. So I'm thinking, right, okay, so I need to obviously change the plants. But in principle, it works. So I've got, what else have I got? I've got another design that's going to compete with gully systems. So gully systems for lettuce, herbs and things like that. They're obviously NFT gullies, and everyone's seen them.
Yeah.
Just like, drain pipes with a cap on with holes in, little net
like
pot.
a narrow gully.
Yeah. So the idea is to, in essence, create a gully system, but it will be laser leveled. It will be completely leveled. It won't be on a slope like an NFT system. And every 5 meters, you will literally butt up to the actual gullies will butt up to an Aquavalve housing. So the Aquavalve, they butt up to it, they lock in, and then you have access, say a little drawer where you could pull the Aquavalve out and have a look at it, make sure it's servicing. And you'll probably have these Aquavalve housing points every 5-10 meters.
Right.
So, but it'll have to be laser leveled. But then that gives us the ability to be able to grow lettuce and herbs completely off grid, like we're obviously doing, that we'll talk about in a little while, a bit in Kenya. Right. So, we can grow stuff off grid now, but it's in pots. Whereas obviously we want to take the NFT gully technology to a slightly different level and put the Autopot spin on it. Whereas the gullies will basically be laser leveled, and then you'll literally have lengths of gully that will butt up to an Aquavalve box, for example, and that Aquavalve box will be distributed along the length of that gully system, maybe every 5-10 meters, and that will irrigate the plants for you.
Wow.
There's a couple of other things. Trying to think off the top of my head. I don't want to give too many of my cards away, otherwise you might find someone down in Coventry copying me again.
I couldn't possibly imagine which distributor you'd be talking about. So let's have a chat about the project in Kenya. So tell me about the project in Kenya. I've heard about it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I have the utmost admiration for you for putting your money in and putting your time and effort into it. But for everybody that's listening, just tell us all about that Kenya project.
Well, in essence, it came about through a gentleman called Nam. I met Nam probably 2006, 2008. And so Nam's a Kenyan guy, originally worked for the World Bank in Kenya. And I think he moved over back to the UK, Croydon area, probably early 2000s with his family. I think his wife's she's an accountant or a lawyer. Got grown-up children and younger children. I think his younger children are probably sort of 8, 9, 10, 11, something like that. And so in about 2006, 2008, Nam bought an easy-to-grow kit, which is the 2-pot tray, 2 pots, a tank, and the aquavalve.
Yeah, I've got one. Tomatoes. It's great. It's a great kit.
So he grew some tomatoes at home, and then we sort of got in touch. You know, he'd bought a product just like an online shop customer, and we're so impressed with it. He sort of came back to me, and I obviously started speaking to him and become friends with him over the years. And so we got to about 2010, and he decided he wanted to see if he could grow tomatoes in his brother's greenhouse in Kenya, because I think the family have got quite a bit of land. So they tried to grow with easy-to-grow trays, some tomatoes, and a few issues with obviously bacterial issues, insect issues, and chipped away at it, tried to sort of carry on. And then in about it must be about 4 or 5 years ago now, he came to see me at the offices, and he'd been sort of playing around for sort of like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And he said, "Look, Jason," and he said, I really want to make this work." And I said, "Well, what do you want to make work?" He said, "I want to be able to teach people how to grow and create a concept in Africa, for example, but not just Africa, because we've got another project probably starting in Pakistan soon as well, where where off-grid growing is achievable." So in essence, we sat down and had a chat, and I said, "All right, okay, Nam, so really what you want is me to finance it." He went, "Yeah." I went, "To be honest with you, I will." So, I said, "Well, how much do you think it's going to cost?" So we did put the budget together, and to set up, I think it was a 600 square metre greenhouse with all the kit in it, the fertiliser I think we originally got from Growth Technology, and all the equipment we needed. We needed electrical fence to put around the greenhouse to stop the baboon coming in there and ripping the green. Well, we're right on the border of Kenya and Uganda. We're half a kilometre from the Lake Victoria, so you can imagine you've got hippos, giraffes, lions, baboons, you name it. I haven't got spider mites. We've got spider mites over there. We've got bigger things as well. So we had to put electrical fences up, to stop, things coming in and wrecking the greenhouse, because they'll just get in and wreck everything. Yeah. So the project started about 4 or 5 years ago, and Nam literally has dedicated the last 4 years of his life by being away from his family in Croydon. He's back at the moment. I've got a meeting with him, I think, in a week's time. He's back for about 2 weeks. And so he's dedicated the last 3-4 years of his life trying to perfect the art of growing off-grid with autopots. So all he uses is a solar panel to pump the water out of Lake Victoria into the reservoirs, and then via gravity or whatever, he then obviously takes that water from the large reservoirs, put it in the feed reservoirs and mix the food in there, and then they gravity feed to all the autopot systems in the greenhouse. So over the last 4 years, it's been eventful, to say the least. We've had trees fall on greenhouses. We've had, crops just wither and die because of various diseases. Because he's actually growing in cocoa and pumice. We had a problem last year, and it was found to actually be some bacteria in Lake Victoria, which the tomato plants took off beautifully. 6, 8 weeks, 9 weeks into the crop, they just keeled over. So we had to obviously go back to the main growers in Kenya, because there's obviously a lot of growing going in Kenya for cut flowers and produce that comes over here, to get a bit of advice and have the water analysed and the substrate analysed, and obviously the tissue of the plant analysed. And it turned out there was a virus that was coming out of the lake, so they had to deal with that. So now, as of today, the last couple of weeks, Nam's pretty much nailed it with regards to off-grid growing. So we don't use any power whatsoever. There's no environmental control in this greenhouse. We've now got a bigger greenhouse, which is now 1/4 of an acre. And in essence, it's just a showroom for governments.
And so this is completely off the grid. So you're only using like a bit of solar energy just to pump
the water. So we have, I think that, I can't remember if it's a sawtooth greenhouse. So a sawtooth greenhouse is, in essence, it has a big vent at the top. It's just a natural vent. Heat rises, and it'll vent itself out through the sawtooth at the top of the greenhouse. We open the sides up. We've got insect netting to stop insects coming through. That's the only way we can have airflow or control it. I think there's some shade cloth in there as well to obviously try and turn the temperature of the sun down, or the intensity of the sun down. But in essence, there is no environmental control whatsoever.
That's incredible.
So to produce, anyone who wants to have a look on the Facebook page, you'll see the photos, or LinkedIn, that they are quite phenomenal what he's producing. You'd be hard pushed, in many places around the world that, say they are good growers, to compete with what NAM's achieved. Bearing in mind, this guy worked in the World Bank in the early 2000s,
Wow.
and he's just learnt horticulture through me and through his hard work and dedication to create this. So the idea is, well, the World Bank have been to see us, and I'm a little bit sceptical, because I'm quite sceptical these days anyway, that the people who control the people, should I say, are the governments. So in Africa, they as a governing body, you probably wouldn't want the people of Africa, whichever country you're in, whether it's Uganda, Kenya, to start thinking for themselves, because then that gives them not a degree of power, but a degree of, right, hold on a sec, we've been had over here for years and years and years and years. So my concern is that even though the World Bank have been in to see us, to show interest in the concept that because the concept in essence is, right, we want to create a blueprint, and we want to roll that out in villages around Africa and third world countries, and places where people don't have the ability to have access to good quality food day in, day out. And why shouldn't they have? Yeah. But if you look at it from a monetary point of view, why would governments want people to become self-sufficient when they've controlled them for so long? I did a project for probably about 3 years ago, and I helped out the Chelsea Flower Show. And someone dropped out of the Discovery Zone. They contacted me because they'd heard that I'd got an R&D facility, and they asked me to basically come up with a concept within 24 hours and then grow the plants within 8 weeks, which we managed to do, and we got a bronze in the end. But what we did, we created a refugee greenhouse. So, for Syria, and
wow, that's incredible.
So the concept was that there is access to water on all the refugee sites. There is access to people who are intelligent people who have had to be displaced from where they live because of certain reasons, and they're now living in these camps, and they're being supplied food by UNICEF and various other organisations. The problem is with my concept, it empowers the people. People who are in control of people don't necessarily want them to be empowered. So the concept of setting up a refugee greenhouse concept on these sites where borehole water's already there, you can provide fertiliser to mix with that water, you can provide substrate to put in those pots, gravity's free, and you can put a greenhouse up, and these guys could work and have a nice job during the day, and would have food for the community within that. They don't want that. They don't want that to happen, because UNICEF lose money by not having, but basically because of the reduced supply of the needed items that they are going in from the companies that are supplying them. The classic example, people want wars because they make money, because they sell guns. It's the same thing, with famine and places like, all these charities and all the organisations behind the charities that are not giving to these, to these people that are needing help. They're actually selling and making a profit. So unfortunately, we're fighting against the powers that be, whether it's the World Bank, whether it's the Ugandan government, the Kenyan government, to say, look, guys, this is what we're trying to create. And to be honest with you, we've done it. So whether you're going to come in and help us, then great. If you're not, then we'll do it ourselves. The only problem is that they're very powerful people. And people go in and destroy things just for the sake of destroying things. You know, in sort of in places like Africa or, you know, other places around the world, because they don't want people to think for themselves, and they don't want them to think for themselves. Look at China, for example. You know, they control the internet because they don't want people to think for themselves.
So crazy that is.
It is, and unfortunately, that's the way of the world. And once you start, you know, looking at, you know, the way that, you know, people eat or the way that they have access to produce, and you think that it becomes a political issue, it's quite sad. You know, really, you know, it is quite upsetting. You know,
it's a humane principle.
It is,
it
is, and unfortunately, that's greed for you.
Yeah.
You know, that is greed for you, and you know, governments are as greedy as the next person, and you know, unfortunately, you know, they have a controlling point of view of the way that things are sort of positioned within their countries or within their people's minds.
Wow, it's incredible. So that the greenhouse, is that on the Autopot Facebook?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, pretty much everything, you know, relating to Autopot, the updates we do, you know, the stuff that comes in from other people around the world is all pretty much dumped on the Autopot Facebook. I think we've got Instagram channels as well. What else? We've got LinkedIn channels. So if you type in Autopot, pretty much YouTube. I think we've got some stuff on YouTube. I think we're going to start doing bigger things on YouTube anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
you said about doing the demonstration videos in the R&D facility. Is that you're going to start sort of doing with very basics, how to set up and how to change feeds?
It'll literally be from the aquavalve up.
Right.
So what we'll do, say for example, we'll just, the first video, basically say what we're going to be doing, 5 minutes long, what we're going to be doing over the next coming videos. And then probably the first informational video will be how to understand your aquavalve, how to use your aquavalve, what you do when you get your aquavalve. If there's any issues that you have with your aquavalve, this is what they might be. You know, and just show people how it comes apart and how, you know, you can do a little blow test through the nozzle to make sure that you know that it's watertight. Yeah. And making sure, you know, we have people put them in trays upside down. We have people, you know, just do the strangest things, no matter how much information you try and get. Biggest and most powerful tool that I've obviously come to realise is obviously YouTube, because people don't read instructions. People go, I'll go on YouTube.
I'll just check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll check it out on YouTube. So from our point of view, we're going to obviously start doing all this informational stuff regards to Autopot and anything else that's associated with Autopot or any alliances that we have with other companies. We'll promote their brands when we're doing trials within the R&D facility. Which people love anyway, because they can see, oh, you know, Jason's trying this now. And the good thing is as well, because we put it out there, and we're quite sort of au fait in what we do. We're not cloak and dagger company, you know. We have technology; it's patented. If people want to try and break it, then crack on. I'm not going to spend all my time, you know, trying to take you through court because I've got more important things to do. Yeah. The great thing about putting it out there is that it becomes, to some degree, a community of people who will throw their 10 pence worth of knowledge in there and say, well, Jason, have you tried this? Or have you looked at this? Well, no, that's utter rubbish. I don't even know why you're thinking of that. But, you know, some people will go, no, I'll go, that's a really good idea. We'll implement that and we'll try that and we'll see how that works. So you get everybody helping each other. And that's, you know, ultimately what we're going to try and do with these, you know, 5 to sort of 8 minute videos is make them short and sweet, because I know people's concentration span, mine's as bad as anybody else's. But try and make them short and sweet and straight to the point, and not, you know, try and drag on. Just do, you know, the first video will probably be, you know, understanding and using your aquavalve, maintaining your aquavalve. 5-10 minutes, 8 minutes long, boom, move on to the next one. And then just, you know, and then do a block of maybe 10 videos of one, and we'll release them maybe one a week for 10 weeks. And then while we're doing that, we'll record and load more. And, you know, we'll be around plants. So plants will be there, and we'll probably have a quick chat about the plants or what's been going on. If you look back 3 weeks ago, this is what they look like, and this is what they look like now, and this is what we did.
Well, that's great, because I think there's a lot of YouTube out there already, and they might be doing those demonstrational videos, but might be getting it slightly wrong.
Well, they are.
So if they can actually go to, you know, Autopot's official YouTube channel and look that, they can know how to do it from source and know that
it does make sense. I mean, because, you know, I mean, I've grown up in the hydroponic industry, and I will, you know, without upsetting the majority of the people in the hydroponic industry, which I probably will do anyway, there's not a lot of common sense that comes out. You know, there's a very few, I'll put it politely, there's a very few horticultural experts in the hydroponic market, even with the plants that they're, you know, unofficially promoting. it's quite sad, really, because I could probably name 4 or 5 hydroponic shop growers who actually know their stuff, but not just in that particular plant, but also in tomato production, cucumber production.
Yeah.
Very, very few and far between. And we do deal with, lots of issues, not just in the UK, but from around the world, where people have been given bad advice by shop owners because they just don't know. And instead of pretending that they do know, I'd rather more than happy if they just rang me up and said, Jay, I've got this problem, query.
What can I do?
Could you just clarify it for me so that I know what hymn sheet I'm singing off moving forward? Because all that happens, it starts a process of, well, I didn't get a good result out of that. That product's rubbish, and they tell 2 people and tell 4 people. Well, in reality, it is a good product because we've proven it's a good product because it's been around for years and years. We don't just grow, medical cannabis, recreational cannabis. We grow everything around the world, and we do it in all different climates. And we have, we've got the proof is in the pudding in the case studies that we have. So, to say, some people say, oh no, it doesn't work, it's rubbish. Well, you obviously don't know what you're talking about when it comes to horticulture.
They're just not using it properly.
No,
They haven't got a clue.
No.
Yeah, well, that's the thing as well. How long does the Autopot system last?
I'm still using the same one from 2005. They last forever. They're pretty. But I think the AquaValve, I think, has got a warranty of a year on it. On all the trays, we're still using trays in Thailand that have been there for, God, how long have they been there? Probably 14, 15 years, and they're in the blaring sun, and there's no degradation of the the polypropylene breaking up, because when you use darker materials, they come as standard with a degree of UV. When we started making white pots over the last couple of years, because we found that if we put white pots in hot climates such as Dubai or anywhere else, Africa for example, we found that by having a white pot, although it's not completely blacking out the light into the soil, there's very little penetration beyond the white pot and into maybe 1 centimetre into the soil. It keeps the temperature cooler at the root zone, so we're getting a 5 to 10 degree difference in root zone temperature, which dramatically helps the plants. Whereas if you imagine you've got a black pot in the middle of Dubai or Abu Dhabi,
it's going to get hot.
That's going to get hot. So we came up with the concept, right? Okay, let's do white pots in hot climates. People over here like to use white pots because it looks sexy and it looks nice. Over here, you don't really have the issues, in greenhouses, and obviously you don't really indoors, because generally you should be in a controlled environment when you're indoors anyway. And obviously you haven't got the intensity of a light bulb compared to the sun. So over here, white pots aren't necessary, even though people just like them because they look sexy in their systems. We tried white trays, and that was a complete disaster because
I thought that would be good. It would reflect the light.
It would have done, but the problem is obviously we're using polypropylene. And then obviously you have to use a white to obviously make it white. White doesn't completely, it still allows light to pass through it. So what we were finding in the white trays is that over a period of time, particularly in greenhouses, is that the light was obviously penetrating into the tray, getting through the plastic in the tray and making the water just algae, because so you're getting the light in there. So we had to get rid of all these. I had thousands and thousands of white trays, and we just had to scrap the lot.
Wow.
Just send them back to be regrind.
Wow. So going back to that, people not knowing what to do and with your videos, I think it's called the Kruger effect, when someone knows very little about something.
Yeah.
They actually think that they know everything about it. And the problem is that they pass that information on, and then the person who takes that information, because the person that's give it to them is so confident, think that that's right, and then so it spreads on.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why when I started the Bucks is having a hydro shop and running a hydro shop myself, there's a sort of masculinity in the industry.
Yeah.
And some people don't want to ask those questions.
No.
Everybody wants to be the best grower, and everyone wants to be, the hard man and the tough guy. So I found, just being in the shop, that they wouldn't want to ask the very basic questions. And because they don't, a lot of people that maybe in the black market industry don't come from a horticultural background, they don't know the basics. So that's one of the reasons why the book has done so well. My book is that it's gone back to basics.
Yeah.
And it's more of a cookbook, really. It sort of says, I'm not sort of saying I'm the best and I'm the best in everything. It sort of says, this is how I cook an omelette.
Yeah.
This is how you should cook an omelette.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can then tailor it, play around, and do what you need to do. But these are the basics.
Yeah.
So with your videos, your tutorial videos, I think that's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean, it will help because, I've missed a trick, really. I mean, YouTube's one of the most powerful tools in the world at the moment.
Now, yeah.
And it's become quite apparent over the last couple of years that people don't read instructions.
No.
They just don't. They just refer to some online social media place or whatever where they've got the information.
Or their friend who's told them wrong.
Or their friend who's told them. And, no end of times have I had people ring up, my friends told me, no, or the shops rang up, and no, look at it this way. And at the end of the day, whether you grow in autopot or whether you grow in anything, it's about keeping things simple and and as basic as possible, because a plant is a simple thing. It's a living thing. This is what people... I always get a little bit amused because, I got into the industry... I think I got into the industry because I was a hippie. I think I was going to be a millionaire overnight, and it never happened. And it took many, many, many years for that to happen. But I became a lover of growing things as I became a cannabis grower at the time. And I love growing anything, whether it's flowers. I mean, you can see what the guys do at the farm, when the Autopot Summer Social, a lot of love goes into, and passion and time and sweat goes into producing good quality plants to try and make them look as good for those 2 days when the people turn up. But regards to growing should be simple, and what people, one thing that's become quite apparent over the years is the three most important things in horticulture are environment, and people don't realise that. If you don't have your temperature right, if you don't have your humidity right, you don't have air movement, and I just mean gentle air movement. I don't mean gale force winds blowing plants sideways like it's in the Sahara Desert. Then the general census is, if they think their environment's correct and they notice issues with their plant, it's got calcium lockout, it's got this, or it's got that. The reason is because your environment isn't correct. And all that happens, 9 times out of 10, they will go into a store, I've got this problem, and I'll give them something else to try and fix the problem, patch over, put the plaster over the sore. And it doesn't work. And I think people are gradually, slowly starting to realise that, I can't grow something, whatever I'm growing, unless I have the environment correct. An environment, you could have the best or worst system in the world. And if you haven't got the environment on point, then you may as well pack up and go home.
Definitely. The same with nutrients. Nutrients are super expensive. Some of them are crazy prices for what's actually in the bottle.
Yeah.
And you can spend all the money you want in the world on nutrients. If your environment's not right,
no,
it's a dead cause.
And the problem is people don't see that. When they go into their retail store and ask for advice, it's always, even though unbeknownst to the store owner, because maybe they haven't got a great deal of knowledge, or they think they've got a great deal of knowledge, it falls one way or the other. The fact of the matter is, the plant suffers because it can't transpire properly. And if it can't transpire properly, then all matter of things will occur within the leaf, and it just can't take up. I've got lockout. Well, why do you think you've got lockout? What's your temperatures? And my temperature's 32 degrees, and my humidity's 30. Well, change your plants to cacti, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I've also over the years tried to make it as easy for people to understand. To try and make it something that they'll link their thought patterns to try and go, right, okay, imagine you standing in a desert naked. What would you want to eat? Would you want to eat a glass of water, or would you like to eat a steak? I'd like to eat
the water
or drink the water. Okay, well, think what a plant's like. If it's really hot, it wants to drink water. It doesn't want large amounts of food to eat. Put yourself in Alaska. How would you feel there? Would you want to drink water? Would you eat steak? I don't want to eat steak. And it's the same thing. When you look at the commercial growers that I do work with all around the world, for edible crops, tomatoes and cucumbers. We did trials. When I first sort of came into Autopot in the early 2000s, I was very kindly given some space in a commercial greenhouse at Valley Grown Nurseries down in Nasing in Essex. And I learnt a lot from Gary Taylor. And he over the years, he's been given an OBE or a CBE for his services to horticulture. And he's become a good friend over the years.
Wow.
And they grew at Nazing. They've now got a bigger site. So I think at the time it was 10 acres. I think it's now 50 acres now.
It's a big site.
It's a big site. And so it was in the 10 acres at the time. I think they've got cues and tomatoes there now as well. But at the time it was all capsicum, bell peppers, different, yellows, reds, oranges, greens. And when they brought their plants in, this is just a greenhouse. So they would bring they grow the crop for 11 months. And what they would do, they'd take the crop down in October, clean it up, clean the whole 10 acres, and by the first, and this was years ago, they've changed the time settings now, they're more planting in January now, but at the time, they bring the plants in, 250,000 rock wool plants in rock wool 4-inch cubes that would sit on rock wool slabs that they'd been dripping for 2-3 weeks before the plants came in, to balance them, not 24 hours like people do here in the hydroponic industry. Stabilize your rock wool by soaking it in 5.5 overnight, then drain it off, and then you'll be stable. No, these guys do it drip into these slabs over a period of probably 2 to 3 weeks to stabilize the slab, so the runoff is coming out true every single time.
And did you say 250,000?
250,000 pepper plants.
Wow.
And so what they do, they receive the pepper plants, all the different strains, from commercial growers or nurserymen in Holland. They get shipped over. They put these plants in position in a heated, environmentally controlled greenhouse in December. So you can imagine the amount of power that's been used. It's basically hot water pipes that keep everything nice and warm. But the EC, because the light levels are so low in December, January, February, the EC that they start feeding these plants is 3.6 EC.
3.6?
3.6. So it's off the scale. It's complete opposite to what the hydroponic industry. The reason being is because the light levels are so low in the sky. So if you imagine once the sun starts to crank up in March, April, May, June, July, August, once they get to March and the sun starts to become stronger and higher in the sky, then they start to reduce the amount of EC, because at the beginning of the season, when the light levels are low, what they in essence want is they want that plant to be able to support itself for the rest of the season and the oncoming 11 months. If they don't feed that plant up strong, and the reason they can feed it strong because the light levels are so low, they fire in at 3.6, keep it going, build that root system, get that support mechanism down below in the root mass there to support the plant that's going to be, these pepper plants by the time they're finished between 14 and 18 foot tall. Wow. So they grow them like tomatoes, the upper string, and select the heads and sometimes 2 to 4 heads on a pepper plant. If you go to Italy, for example, they have to grow them in a bush because the microenvironment is, they haven't got properly controlled greenhouses. A lot of them are grown in hoop greenhouses, and they have to grow them in a bush. So it's different ways of growing them. So over here, they would start the EC at 3.6, and then as you get into the warmer part of the season, March, April, May, they bring it down to about maybe 2.2, 2.4, and they just run it like that. And then as they get towards September, October, ready to take the crop down, they crank it back up again.
Right.
And that's, and then you go to, say, we've grown in Dubai, Barbados, Thailand. The EC, the maximum, depends obviously on the quality of the water. The water's coming out at 0. Then you're probably only going to go in an EC 1.2.
Right, fine.
But if you've got a starting EC of your water at 0.8, which most people in the country have, you could probably only go up to maybe 1.4 in hot climates, because the plant just can't take the feed. It wants to transpire. It wants water. But obviously, you've got to get some food in there to keep it alive. But it's the amount of food, depending on the intensity of the sun, that allows you to dictate what you're doing. And every different country is,
that's a different environment, doesn't it? You've got to try and control.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
So you touched on the summer social there, and the greenhouses there. I saw them this year. They looked absolutely fantastic. The guys there do an incredible job, as you do, and it's absolutely flawless every single time. There's a lot of people over from the States this year, a lot of Americans over, and I think they were blown away by the greenhouse. Was just incredible. Yeah, no, there's a lot of them. They'll probably start next year's crop they will in December. So they'll start doing the chilies, because obviously they've got to bring those on. The tomatoes they'll start later in the season. The guys will probably start germinating in the next sort of 6 to 8 weeks,
And they've obviously, Ben's got Plant Asia, he's got a huge indoor area where he can keep all the seeds all growing fine all throughout, until they can bring them out. And I think this year, also he's just purchased, and I think it goes through in the next week or so, another 2.5 acres.
Oh, really?
So we've got extra space for more exhibitors there this year. I think he's also looking at putting or doubling the size of the greenhouse.
Right. Okay.
So it'll be twice the size, be just over 1/4 of an acre. I think at the moment he's got 600 square meters. I think it'll be 1.2 or 1,200 square meters. So it'll be over 1/4 of an acre. And yeah, it's a good event. I think we've set the dates for it for next year as well. I think it's 15th, 16th. It's the week before the Product Earth show. So I think Product Earth have just come out, and then we're actually a week before.
Yeah.
So I think it's 15th, 16th. I think but obviously it's only
trade only.
Trade only.
It's trade only,
and it
sure.
will be. We looked at a few aspects of the way that it was policed last year, and we'll be changing a few things this year, having a few other things. Because what we noticed this year, over the years, we've always tried to make it a bit of a more, instead of a typical exhibition where people go and show their wares, try and make it a little bit more fun.
Well, that's it. When I remember the first time that I went, I was working for another distributor.
Yeah.
Everyone sort of had to have like a theme, surfing or pinball or snooker or some sort of game, some sort of fair.
Yeah, that was lost a little bit this year. There were some people doing that. So what the guys have been doing behind the scenes is looking at events or activities that can be brought into the show, and also a list of activities that we can offer to the exhibitors and say, look, have a look at this for a concept, this for a concept, this for a concept. Because what we don't want it to be is just become another trade show and a load of people just turn up and go, yeah, it's another trade show, and then go again. We try to make it a little bit different, and obviously we've got the greenhouse there, which obviously proves that what we're trying to sell works.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, no, it's a good show. I'm not sure how many years this is. It'll probably be, because obviously it started off very small with maybe just 20, 30 people coming from shops years and years ago, to a couple of thousand.
It's a big event. It's
become
one of the number one trade event in the UK. And like I said, this year there was, I think everyone was there. Like big names from America, Australia,
all over the world.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, no, it was a good show. We managed to keep away from the rain as well. It rained on Friday, and I think it rained on Monday.
It was so lucky.
Yeah,
on Friday, it was Thursday, it was torrential rain.
Yeah, I know.
Friday, I popped down on the Friday just to have a look around the greenhouse, take some photographs, some stuff, and it was still raining. And I was thinking,
I know.
Is this going to be the year? Is this going to be the year? Then mid-Friday, the sun came out, the ground dried like that.
I know. We had a little bit of mud, but it wasn't too bad. But yeah, I mean, every year I always say the sun always shines on the righteous. Maybe I might fall on my sword one year. We'll see, because it really is dependent on the weather. If you have a downpour, it could completely ruin the event, because people just don't want to come. Not that they'd like to come, but would you really want to wander around in the pouring rain? That's the problem.
Yeah.
Really, and people, no matter how people depict the event to be, if it's raining and miserable, I'd rather stay in and watch the football, to be honest with you.
I love the ethos of the show, because the distributors that are there, they like to have the shops come over, and it's not all about the hard sell.
No.
It's about sort of giving back, sort of saying, we're in the community, we're friends, come and have a drink with us, come and socialise with us, come and hang out with us. Yeah. And I think there isn't anything like that in the world, let alone,
Well, it's funny you say that, because we've been approached over the last couple of months to see if we want to franchise the concept around the world. So we are speaking to people, around the world, to say, look, all you really need, if you've got land and a greenhouse, which some people that we do business with have, an autopot in it, then really you just need the licenses and and obviously the ability to be able to harness those people. I mean, we're looking at Spain at the moment, because people are. Well, I'm hearing people are saying that they're getting fed up of Spanibus now, and it's getting a bit tiresome.
I've been to Spanibus for quite a few years now, back to back, and it seems to be getting as busy as ever.
Oh yeah, it is, without a doubt.
I don't know whether High Times have bought it or not.
They have bought it.
The thing is with the Spanibus, I've looked at it at many angles, and I don't know where else in Barcelona or around Barcelona that they could hold what's, for want of a better word, a smoke-friendly exhibition. anywhere else in Barcelona other than there.
I know.
And I think they've reached maximum
I think
capacity.
I think from what I can gather, that people have obviously looked at the model that we've created, and it's just for trade only, B2B. And I think the Spanish have obviously come over and had a look at it as well, and the concept that that we've created here in the UK, and they like that model. And I think the European guys obviously all frequent the Spanish show in March. They like the concept of not having the end user in there, quite often causing chaos. And unfortunately, Spanish are renowned for theft, and that's not through the business-to-business owners. That's to do with the punters coming through the door. Once you get a degree of end user coming through the door, unfortunately, it becomes very difficult to control. I mean, obviously, we've thought about changing the concept of the Autopot Summer Social, and it always goes back to the answer: no, we won't do it, because it just will ruin the feel. And we've had issues with theft, even with B2B businesses,
which is incredible, which is incredibly disappointing.
It is disappointing. But we I think 2 years it happened, not last year and the year before, but the 2 subsequent years. We know who stole all the equipment on the first year, and we'll just.
Is that when the valves went?
Yeah, all the easy to goes. We know exactly who that was. We'll just save that one for a rainy day.
Okay.
The other following year, we no idea. That was that was all done quite professionally, and
they've got to have a grip to do that. To come on site with the people that's on site. And
I mean, over the last couple of years, obviously we changed it so that access to the site via vehicle was reduced, and that's helped no end. So, but it's it is what it is when you've got a couple of thousand people in there.
You had some big names there this year.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, Mickey Finn was there.
Finn.
So Ben was over the moon because that's his idol.
Really?
Yeah. He was his absolute idol. He was a kid. He grew up to Mickey Finn.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, we've there's quite a few friends who are friends, with Sasha and John Digweed and. Various other famous DJs around the world. And so the problem is these guys, when we have the show, they're all based in Ibiza. Why would you want to leave Ibiza with the sun shining and chance it and come to the UK?
Yeah.
And a lot of these DJs, are they're in their 60s now.
They've made the money as well, haven't they?
So, at the end of the day, James has done a great job, of what he'd done over the last couple of years.
That's James at Mills. Big shout out to James at Mills.
He's done a fantastic job. One thing I hate is that I missed the drummers this year. I was so looking forward to the drummers. And all I saw as I ran up to the Mills amusement tent was the drummers walking off stage. I was like, oh, Christ.
Dang.
But no, he had some great acts there, the beatbox guys. I thought I never liked beatbox, but they were amazing.
I like the Beast Decoys as
well.
They
were good.
They were fun.
And Oasis, they were quite good as well.
Yeah,
they were good.
Yeah.
But no, he had some really, good. And that's what James has done. He's just tried to, I think he's been involved in this sort of industry in the past, the music industry and entertainment industry, and putting events on. And so he's got a good feel for what people like, and obviously he's got to come to the realization that there's a huge contrast of people all grown up now, not just wanting banging this or banging that. They just want a bit of a diverse, show put on, and he does a really good job, and it's stressful for him, trying to line it all up and get it all organised and get let down at the last minute, which I think a couple of acts let him down. But no, he does a fantastic job.
Well, it didn't show. It seemed seamless.
No,
the entertainment was
seamless.
seamless. It was a fantastic show. It was a great show.
Yeah.
It was a bit cheeky that obviously there was a show back to back.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
The
Autopot show is a trade show.
Yeah.
And it's been going for so long.
Yeah.
It's just going to go from strength to strength. It would be great to have maybe a seminar room or a seminar tent at the Autopot for those.
Yeah. True. Well, what we tried to do. The problem is, we tried to always do tours around the greenhouse. We didn't do it this year because the subsequent years it was. We're so tired, myself and Ben, running around, and we looked at the you have the Heart app on your iPhone or your smartphone. On Monday when we got back this year, I spoke to Ray, my partner, and I said, "Oh, Ray, just have a quick look at your Heart app. How many miles kilometres did you do this weekend from Thursday when we turned up until Sunday night?" We both pretty much had done 34 kilometres, just wandering around, speaking to people, making sure, running around this problem, that problem. And the only time that we really have chance to sort of sit down and just relax, I mean, obviously bear in mind, Ben and the team are setting up the whole event from Monday when the TPs come in, the marquees come in. They've got to make sure everything, all the electrical power's going in.
Run the business as well.
And run the business as well. Then the Autopot guys turn up on Thursday lunchtime. They do everything that they need to do to help. And so by the time you get to Monday, you're absolutely shattered. So, I mean, we were actually talking a little while back to... do you remember Theo, who used to work for Gavita, now works for Fluence?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Well, he mentioned that we ought to do sort of a seminar tent, which is, is... we've got some ideas. We can add that one to the pot and see how that works out, and see if people want to get up on stage and have a little chat about their products, and hopefully people will listen to them.
Because we bumped into each other at the Hemp and CBD Expo, and they obviously have their main stage and they have the pro stage. So the main stage was okay, but the pro business stage at the back, I thought was really good. They had some really good talks there. Yeah. Really interesting, innovative, from people from different fields as well. They're doctors and various other people. I thought that was it was good, and I think it brought a different element into the show as well. For people that just do want that education.
That's on again, isn't it? I think in March. It is March.
It's March.
I noticed that the first time they did it, I went, which was March last year.
It was.
March this year. Yeah, that's right. Rocked up about sort of midday, and the car park was absolutely full. And walked into the event, and you could hear the sort of like the people talking, the chitter chatter, and you could see it was quite buzzing. Went in, it's buzzing. And then this year, I turned up at roughly the same time, and the car park was more than half empty. Yeah. And I don't think that they had the traffic, well, I'm sure they didn't, because you couldn't hear that buzz. I mean, when you went into the exhibition, it seemed really busy, and it was nice. But from my point of view, from that show, I know they want to try and diversify it and put, hydroponic stuff in there and hydroponic companies. Whether people will sign up to that, I don't know. I think they need to be just a little bit careful, because it's become much of a muchness quite quickly, because it's white label CBD products. And I don't know, they all look like Barra boys who are just trying to pump their stuff. There's some nice products there, I must admit, because I went around and spent a couple of hours there, and there are some nice products. But I think it might, they're trying to get almost 3 in within a 12-month period. Whether they're trying to, do what the MJ Biz show have done and make hay while the sun shines, and they certainly are over in Vegas. But I don't know whether it'll continue to be a success, because there's nothing really new, and the CBD sort of wave has now landed on the beach already. So I don't know. I wish them all the best anyway.
Yeah, me too. And personally, I think maybe one would be optimum for the year. Yeah. Same with maybe MJ Biz. For the people that haven't been over to MJ Biz show, when you go there for the first time, it's breathtaking.
It is, yeah.
It's literally breathtaking. It's so big, you can't sort of, you can't comprehend it almost.
I know. Well, last year, because we've been doing it ever since it started, when it was very small, and it was sort of like I think the first place we went to was the Chicago Hilton, in Chicago, and there was maybe 250 exhibitors there, and it was busy. And then obviously it's got bigger and bigger and bigger. Now it's in Vegas, and they've always done it in Vegas, but they always did another show elsewhere. Yeah. And last November in Vegas, if you walked the show, it was a 5-kilometre walk.
Wow.
That's how big the show is. It is immense.
I was there for the duration. I didn't get all the way around.
No, I'm not surprised. It is, it's probably the biggest commercial cannabis event in the exhibition in the world by a country mile. It really is. But, I mean, it's so expensive.
I mean, what was it, a ticket last year? $700, $400?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you try and buy tickets on the day, they'll cost you $800.
Wow.
We get a certain amount, because we've got, we've got a stand or a booth, which is 30 foot by 10 foot, and that's $17,500 just for that little area.
Wow.
And I was talking to the organisers when we booked it, because we've been going so long. We get second choice of location. So obviously, all the first choice goes to the sponsors, and then the people who've been there for a long time, they obviously get second choice. And I was chatting to them, and I said, "Jesus Christ, $17,500 for a 10 by
17 grand.
17 and a half.
1,700.
No, $17,500, which is about.
I'm glad I'm sitting down.
Which is a small area. It's only 30 foot by 10 feet. So what? 3 meters by 6 meters, is it, or 9 meters? It's not that big. And I said to her, "Look, I can remember being with you guys. Yeah, I know you've been with us for years." I went, "Yeah." I said, "How come you're charging so much?" And she just started giggling down the phone. I said, "Because you can." She went, "Yeah." and unfortunately, that's the way it is that make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah, I think speaking to the industry, some people are not going this year. I think just for that reason, for the cost reason, sort of pulling out. But it's the biggest one.
It is. I mean, it's we fly staff over. I mean, obviously, I'm doing around the South America trip, then coming into the States and hitting it at the end, then flying home. But we've got Ben from Plantasia is coming over. Dave will be over there. The US guys, they'll be there as well. There's a lot of people. Yeah, flying in at a huge expense, and then you've got the hotels and Airbnbs and stuff.
Last year there was rumours that they were turning people away.
Really?
Customs people were turning people away.
Oh yeah, well they will do. Yeah, they will do. Unfortunately, people aren't sensible enough to sort of answer the right questions when they fly into into Nevada or into Vegas. Yeah, you get asked a question, answer it sensibly, and you should be fine.
Yeah, I think some were turned away. And it was like, where are you going? This event? The cannabis event. Yeah, you're not coming in.
No, I know.
Sent back.
I know. Yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, just quickly, can we touch on South America?
Yeah.
South Africa. Sorry.
South Africa. Yeah.
South Africa.
Yeah.
So he's over in South Africa.
Dave was in South Africa.
Yeah.
He was there probably about 4 or 5 months ago, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was reading that they've got a drought on, haven't they, that they've had for a couple of years. So Autopot could do fantastic over there because there's no waste, is there?
No, there's no waste. I mean, I was chatting to a South African guy the other day who's literally just come back. They've had huge rainfall in either Cape Town or Johannesburg. I can't remember which one, so it's flooded at the moment. One of them's flooded. But both of them have got no water. So obviously, they'll try and harness as much of this rainfall as they can and then, store it. But yeah, Dave was over there, and you would go to the public toilet and go to wash your hands, and there is no water coming out of the taps. You have to use the gel. No water coming out of the tap. The water is turned off. And the gel, the sanitising gel, you had to wash your hands with the sanitising gel. In the hotel that he was staying in, the shower was regulated to having you're only allowed a shower for 5 minutes in a 24-hour period.
For a paying hotel guest?
For a paying hotel guest, because they just haven't got the water, yeah. Wow. So, I mean, Autopot is starting to get into South Africa in a big way, obviously because of those necessity of, trying to save as much water as possible. And obviously, the climate of South Africa, whether it's medical cannabis, recreational cannabis or edible produce, all uses water, and 99 times out of 100, they dump it into the ground. So that will have to change. And it'll have to change worldwide, not just in South Africa, but many places all around the world.
Well, hopefully you'll start in Kenya with the greenhouse that can sort of be rolled out. I think that's incredible. Well, Jason, huge thank you for coming on the podcast. Have you got any shout-outs or social medias or websites you want to point people to?
So I suppose for the UK, people in the UK, it's autopot.co.uk. For people in Spanish-speaking countries, it's autopot.es. People in Canada, it's autopot-canada.com or .ca. I can't remember. We may own both of them. And then America is autopot-usa.com. And there are other, you can go Autopot France. You type in Autopot, we pretty much come up everywhere. And then there's all the social media sites, the LinkedIn, the Twitter. what are they? Instagram, all the usual things,
And if there's any industry companies out there that maybe want to come to the Autopot show next year or exhibit, they can contact you via the social media. Just pick up on your email address.
Yeah, they can. I think the person my partner's in charge of it, Ray. So behave yourselves, ladies and gents. Otherwise, he'll get back to me and he won't allow you in. So it's if you do want to attend the event next year, which I think is the 15th, 16th of August. It's Ray, RAE, at autopot.co.uk.
That's fantastic.
Brilliant.
Again, thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having
Thank
me.
you, Jason.
Take care.
Okay,
Cheers. Bye-bye.
What a fantastic conversation with Jason Ralph Smith. What a cool guy. Distributed in over 63 countries, the Autopot system is phenomenal. If you're interested in finding out more, go and have a look on their social media channels. And if you're interested in this podcast and would like to hear more, then please subscribe to us, give us a rating and leave your comments. Thank you and goodbye.